Salutations, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to podcast The Storm, where social awkward outcasts, crazy riddles, and all-around nerds convene to talk and debate all things pop culture. With me, as always, is my co-host, the nerdy occultist, aka the Authenticator, Dalton L. Mortimer.
Good evening, everyone. I am coming to you off of camera this week because I have to hold my phone sideways in order for it to stay on the charger long enough to do the stream. And nobody needs to see me from a freaking Dutch angle, wide angle lens.
Yeah, I don't think a phone charger is all that much. I know you're strapped for cash right now, but
well, the first place my money's going when I get money again is going to be reordering your Christmas presents and hope that Amazon doesn't cancel them this time. And then the second place my money will go when I have money again is a phone charger. But until such time as either of those things are within my financial reach, we're just going to have to deal with it.
All right. Also, what kind of charger do you have? I'm assuming C. No, not C.
My phone is a Google Pixel, so only Android chargers work with it.
So wait, no, see, wait, so you do have a C charger then?
I don't know what the letter designs mean as far as phone charger designs go.
Well, if you were to take it out and it looked like a very smooth rectangle, then it's a C charger.
Yes, it looks vaguely like a USB port thing.
Okay. And like it's all smooth. It doesn't have like rivs in it or anything.
Not to the best of my knowledge. I would take it out and inspect it, but in the 5 seconds it would take me to do that, my phone would die. So,
Jesus Christ! How long do you have? How much do you use your phone? Because I can have my phone. I can charge my phone all night and then have it be on practically all day.
Keep in mind that I use my phone for live streams and shit. My phone battery only lasts about like 2 to 4 hours, which when you're live streaming,
it was a lot longer.
I always plug in. I always plug in before I get on a live stream so that my phone doesn't die midstream. Because there's only so many times I can go, sorry for my being cut off mid-rant because my phone died, before I start to feel really bad. So
first, probably need to get a new phone charger, obviously. Second, you ever thought about investing in a computer or a laptop or something?
Honestly, no, because when my phone is working, my phone works fine for this, and I don't have the resources or money to get a laptop anyway. So normally, when I have access to a decent charger, my phone works fine. It's just that I'm just saying, like,
those batteries last a lot longer than a phone's. So
this is also true, but then again, who knows how mine might get worn down by God knows what else. Besides, StreamYard hates batteries regardless.
Yeah, fair
So
enough. I mean, hey, I'm glad
there's
I
that.
can just charge. I'm just glad I can charge my phone. I can just have my computer plugged in constantly. So
Yeah, there there are limits to a desktop, but the fact that it remains plugged in when you use it is nice.
yeah. Anyway, so just kind of an update here. Just simply because, full honesty, nothing's really caught our attention in the last few weeks. I mean, we have a few things coming up. We're gonna get back to kind of a
Yeah.
regular kind of.
In particular, yes, the Neil Gaiman allegations will be met with my scrutiny because everyone wanted my opinion on that. Um, but yeah, between that and the fact that there was an anniversary which we missed, and the fact that we haven't done like full on video response in a while, and the fact that Lotus Eaters are fucking idiots when it comes to comics, and they keep putting their foot in their mouth. Yeah, we're doing the Lotus Eaters video for this week
Yeah.
as a late milestone 300 thing.
Yeah. So yeah, we're gonna get back with. There's some stuff that's come out in the last week or so that we can talk about, like some trailers and obviously the articles that Dalton mentioned. Um, we'll cover that next week and just get back into a kind of a regular flow before we have to jump ship again and do February,
Mm-hmm.
which I think we
And
only have
then
one
we'll
more.
have another anniversary to deal with because the first week of March will be our 6-year anniversary of starting the show.
Holy shit!
Unless I'm figuring that wrong. We started
Uh,
we started March 3rd of 2019, and
yeah, yeah.
this
We started a
March,
year. Um, I know we started a year before COVID.
yes,
That was okay.
we were already well and truly established by the time COVIDed.
Yeah. So, you said 2019, so 2025. Okay, let me get my calculator real quick, because I don't do math well. I went to summer school for algebra. Okay, so bear with me.
Uh-huh.
Math was never my look. I preferred literature or English. Okay, I loved writing more than
I
I loved doing math.
I am As your friend, I am not surprised. Given how often your brain spits out freaking story concepts, to the point where I sometimes worry you're gonna go full Richard Maddock and use your own blood as ink if you can't find a paper sometimes.
I get dizzy at the sight of blood, dude. I get dizzy at the sight of blood, so it's probably not gonna happen.
Okay, that's good to know. I don't have to worry about you going full Richard Maddock on the ever flowing inspirations part of it.
Okay, so yeah, you were right. 6 years.
Okay, so yeah, we will have been doing this for 6 years in the first week of March. Because March 3rd, 2019 was our very first episode.
Hey,
Which
Daryl.
simultaneously feels like forever ago and yet like it just happened the other day.
Yeah.
So, womp.
Hey, Daryl. I'm doing fine. Nothing's really happened of late of note. Just trying to get a video that we've had on the list for about a year or so, or no, about a year, I think.
It's probably been at least a little bit longer than that. But yeah, we've had several Lotus Eaters videos on the back burner because Lotus Eaters videos are dumb and they make for
No,
good video responses.
the video came out just a year ago.
Okay, so it is roughly a year.
No, February 15th, 2023. Okay, so we've had, yeah, roughly a year. We've had this video, I think. I think it was like maybe you
Almost
sent it.
almost 2 because it'll be 2 years come February.
Yeah. Although I don't think, I think you sent this to me like towards the end of 2023, or maybe like, I can't remember when you sent this to me, so.
I don't remember either. I think it was like a month or so after they made the thing, because
I,
I don't make a habit of watching a bunch of Lotus Eaters videos. I mean, I watch them occasionally, but I especially avoid watching their opinions when it comes to comics because I can't make it through one of their comic videos without nearly having an aneurysm.
right.
And trust me,
Um,
in the space of a few minutes, you will see why.
Honestly, after I saw the first few seconds, just the genuine disdain he had for apparently this stuff. Anyway, hey,
We will
Giant
get
Troll.
there, and I will try to keep my interruptions to a minimum because Superman is Lotus Eaters cross the bear, so I will try to not
I'm sorry. Did you say
rant,
Lotus?
but I will.
Do you mean my cross the bear?
Yes. Did I not? Did I not say it was Brainstormers cross the bear?
You said Lotus Eaters.
Okay, well then, yes. Bugger me. I shall
Alright.
now. I shall now beat myself for that flight.
Right. Okay. It's also 17 minutes long, but again, it's us. So, but hey, Giant Troll, how you doing? I'm doing good.
They at least
Just
get to the point relatively quickly in this one. Granted, that is a relativity thing. So, but at least they try to get to the point with this one, kind
yeah.
of.
Yeah, I don't really have anything else to say, so let me full screen this. We're just doing banana, right?
Yep, just the good old standard candle of banana, borrowed as it is from the honey badgers.
Banana.
Banana.
Let's move on. To
Yeah.
then you find people. Then you find people crying about how good a comic, like what's so funny about truth, justice, and the American way is, telling you that it's going to be this life changing thing. I'm sorry, guys. I'm just going to say it. Okay,
It's terrible.
it's rubbish. I'm a
So, I'm gonna be fully honest. I've not read the comic itself. I've heard a lot of things. I've heard it's good inspiration. I only understand it from the point of view of someone who has watched Superman vs. the Elite, and I really like that one. I've heard there's
As
some.
far as I'm aware, that's a very good adaptation of the comic. So
Yeah.
it's for all intents and purposes, it's a worthwhile comparison.
Although, what surprises me the most about that issue is that it's only one issue.
Yeah, honestly, in a better world, that would have been a whole ass like miniseries.
Yeah, I'd say
'Cause-
what 5 issues at most.
Because like there are so many terrible miniseries that could have literally been reduced down to one issue, and then there are occasionally issues like that where it's like, imagine what they could have done if they had 2 or 3, or like you say, like 5 to 8 issues, which was the old school DC standard for a miniseries was
Right.
8 issues.
Also, yeah. Okay, hold on. Oh, so Lotus Eaters, at least with comics, is to you as Vosh is to me.
I've never seen Vosh do any takes on geek culture or comics, but I did see he had a video on the Neil Gaiman thing, so we might have to subject ourselves to Vosh vis-a-vis the Neil Gaiman allegations.
Two platonic bananas.
So not a banana, but the banana, the archetypical conceptualization of bananadom. Full stop. Lol.
Okay.
Uh,
Okay, yeah, Jungian archetypes of a banana is a bit too wordy. Yeah, that's true.
the quintessential banana. Lol.
Okay, and look, I'm gonna be fully honest. I know we're only in the first 20 seconds of it, and I've said this several times when we watched those videos. But do the hosts not seem very like dismissive and just?
Oh yeah, no,
really...
they especially the guy on the left there. I think his name is Harry. he is one of the most smugly contemptuous little shits I've ever seen on YouTube, and that is saying something, because there are a lot of narcissistic egomaniacs on the YouTubes. A lot of them.
I'm best friends with one.
I knew you were gonna go there. I would have been disappointed if you didn't go there. Well done, sir. But
You set it up. To be fair, you set it up perfectly. So
I did, and like I said, I would have been minorly ashamed of you if you hadn't. So well done.
right, thank you. But yeah, it's just like even like the first 2 seconds, just the little scoff he had before you started talking. Really, it's just very indicative of how much. And like, I look, I know he hasn't gotten into his point yet, and I apologize for that. But it's just, I would be fine if he was reviewing it and just told the opinion that he did not like the story. I would be fine with that, right?
But it's not. It's not going to end there. He's going to berate the very philosophical underpinnings of the thing, and that
again, hold on. I would again. It's this. If he was reviewing it and gave and was reviewing it from a philosophical standpoint, right?
Right.
I feel like if the issue again is not he's not being what's the word I'm looking for? He's not debating a point. More so, he is stating his
he's treating it as though his opinion is the only valid one on the subject.
Right. His subjective opinion is objective fact in this case,
which is especially kind of frustrating when you consider that his opinion is definitely the minority opinion on what's so funny about Truth, Justice, and the American Way. Because of all the Superman stories over the, century and change that Superman has been a thing, or very nearly a century at least, because we haven't gotten to 2038 yet. But
oh my God.
for the nearly a century and 5 or 6 different mediums that Superman has existed within in that time, almost everyone considers What's So Funny About Truth, Justice, and the American Way, and by extension, Superman versus the Elite, to be one of the greatest and most quintessential Superman stories, full stop. It is fundamentally how the character is to be portrayed for most people who know anything about Superman, and even most of us that don't know much about Superman default to that being how you write Superman correctly. And I'm not saying that people can't be wrong en masse, or that popular opinion is the measuring stick or anything. For example, I fucking hate Denis Villeneuve's Dune adaptation. It is insufferable. And I would be slightly angry and contemptuous, much like Harry is here, if someone told me that they thought Denis Villeneuve's Dune was sacrosanct or something. But the thing of it is, I would also acknowledge that I am in the minority on that opinion. I hate Denis Villeneuve's Dune adaptation, but clearly I'm in the minority there because there are so many people that love it. Now, I can make arguments as to why people are wrong, or that their reasoning is erroneous as to why they like it. And by all means, Harry can certainly go on to defend his opinion of why he doesn't like Superman, why he doesn't like What's So Funny About Truth, Justice, and the American Way, and presumably also Superman versus the Elite. But when everyone and their dog agrees that this is how they would prefer Superman to be portrayed, you'd think some measure of self-awareness, or some measure of wanting to familiarize yourself with the counter-argument, would be implicit somewhere, so at the very least, so that you can effectively argue against it. But he doesn't really do that here. Anyway, quintessential banana.
Yeah. First off, hey, John Arts, good to see you. Sorry, Giant Turtle raised said some things while you were going on that little tirade there. Thinks he. I'm assuming Harry looks. It's Harry, right?
I think so. I get some of their names mixed up, but I'm pretty sure the guy on the left there is Harry. The guy in the black suit.
Okay. Either way, thinks he looks down on his viewers or just the ignorant masses rejecting their message.
Probably not his viewers. One assumes that the Lotus Eaters are one of those echo chambers that think they are the arbiters of truth, and that they uniquely have seen through like the matrix of programming. Blah. One assumes.
Okay. General. So is he just a masturbator of his ego?
We will get into it as we go, and like I said, I will try to not beat him within an inch of his life with the club of logic, so that Brainstormer can take the lead on this one. Because again, Superman is Brainstormer's baby mostly.
Yeah. Giant Turtle. I'm curious how they would write a Superman story. Please don't put that out in the universe, Giant Turtle. Would they just make him become a god king? Could they only write him as a villain? Would they have him depart seeking enlightenment and leave Earth to deal with their own problems? Because by helping them, I'm keeping them weak and infantilized.
In the broadest terms, from what I remember of this video, and granted, it's been a long time since
I'm gonna hold my opinion on the like my opinion on those questions because I want to. So we get into the video more.
Yeah, we should wait to speculate on that until we've actually gotten into the actual argument. So quintessential banana.
Yep. All right, kids. Okay, there we go.
A fan of Joe Kelly's writing.
Yep.
I'm a big fan of his Deadpool run. He basically made the character of Deadpool.
He wrote a good Justice League run after this.
Yeah, he wrote good Justice League run. He's done lots of good. He made Ben 10, which I remember enjoying as a child.
I like Doug Mankey and Liber Mayo as well.
Yeah, Doug Mank's art's really great, but this was a rubbish comic, and
they haven't gotten into their reasoning yet, so we will avoid beating them with an inch of their lives just yet.
It makes me curious. I'm not gonna lie. I thought they were a little older. I mean, they could be, but like older than me, right? Like in their 30s.
No, they're roughly the same age as you. They're
son of a bitch.
Yeah,
when he said Ben 10 and he enjoyed watching that as a kid, that's what got me curious.
Yeah, no, they're about 3 or 4 years younger than me, which means they're roughly contemporaneous to you.
Okay, I loathe my fucking generation. I really do.
Believe me, as a millennial, I'm right there with you, but quite a large proportion of millennials are also useless fuckwits. But yeah, banana. Quintessential banana.
Right. I mean, at least they preference that they like the writer's other works too. And they're not just. Although it does strike me as interesting that they bring up Deadpool like as the first example of his writing.
Well, and my argument there would be, or something that I feel like it's necessary to point out would be, if you like everything else that the writer does and you acknowledge that they're a good writer in lots of other areas, it is possible that you just might not get what Superman, what's so funny about Truth, Justice, and the American Way is doing, and especially given how, again, like, universally loved this particular comic and this particular portrayal of Superman is, it might just be you or your ideological hangups getting in the way, and basically you saying that because Superman doesn't act the way I would want Superman to act, therefore he's either being written out of character or is being philosophically wrong or something.
Okay.
Banana.
Yep.
It's really annoying because it explores a very similar moral theme to his Deadpool run. Because the whole point of this is Superman has encountered this new group of heroes called the Elite, and from what you've told me, this was the first time
This is their debut.
This was their debut, who are people who are more than happy to kill villains to stop them from doing what.
Okay.
In other words, sorry, go ahead. You go first.
Thank you. I mean, still, they haven't gotten to the point yet. They're just giving the background, but the way they're phrasing it, obviously they're posing that the Elite are the better heroes, right?
And I mean, the title of this video is Superman 775 is pacifist propaganda. So
Yeah.
clearly their argument is that Superman being written as this pure then driven snow idealist is a bad thing.
Okay,
or that makes him stupid or something.
Right. Jonah, they're bringing up the 2000s media because, well, one, that they watched that when they were growing up because they're in similar age to I am, but also Joe, the guy who wrote the comic, What's So Funny About Truth, Justice, and the American Way, also helped create that show, Ben 10.
Which, in my head, just means that this writer is probably even more based than I thought he was. Because I didn't realize before this video that he was involved in Ben 10. As far as I understood, that was Wayne McDuffie's baby, but I
feel like there were a lot of people involved in that, to be fair. Anyway,
but, yeah. Anyway.
What was I that they're posing it, they're posing the killing of
as a good thing.
Right, but in the comic, it shows that they have unchecked power and are doing whatever they want, and they're basically... Well, okay, hold on. No, not the comic, again, because I have not read it. I want to read it. I just don't know where to find it, to be fully honest. I've watched the movie and how that was proposed in there. It's killing... Well, it's like a reactionary thing, you know? Like,
they're nihilistically indiscriminate in the way they use their power.
And, like, don't get me wrong. It's not that... Look, I'm not going to ever say that killing is ever the right thing to do, because from how I understand it, it takes a bit of you away. Like, like, you kill yourself as you take another life. Like, a part of yourself dies. But I think in comics, superhero stories, or any stories at all, to explore the moral dilemmas of not taking a life of someone who is vile, who's done bad things.
The classic, why doesn't Batman kill the Joker argument.
Right, and don't get me started on that. But I think, again, the way they had phrased it, it makes it seem like they're viewing the Elite in the right, which was never the point of the comic at all. Which obviously I think that's their problem with it. But
sorry, finish your point. Sorry, go ahead.
But it's... I mean, look at this image and look how they all look. And again, the way I understand the comic, the story is from the movie. They are people who basically are not as trained or as disciplined as Superman, because he, again, the whole walking in a world of cardboard thing, right? And
Mhm.
they're using their powers. They're not as trained, they're not as disciplined, and are basically like walking weapons of mass destruction, and do not care.
And they try to philosophically justify it.
Yeah, and
The argument they make is essentially, we have the power to do this, therefore it is correct that we do this.
Which guy, Dragon Troll said there's a guy on YouTube who had a rather funny take on why he has Batman never killed the Joker. I've seen a few different takes. Which one? Because I've seen one where, like, it's a recent one I saw that stated that Joker is basically like a cryptid. Even if you kill him, he comes back.
Yeah, I saw that. Somebody did a spin on the Red Hood scene where Jason asks.
Yeah, the Panda Red. He's super funny. That dude was cool. He's really good stuff.
And Bruce's response was basically, kill him and he'll be back in 5 minutes. Which, I mean, that would be obviously, you can't really quite do that in serious storytelling, or at least not in as flippant terms as they do in that short. But it is an interesting mechanic that they could bring into play storytelling-wise, that the continuity of the universe constantly gets rebooted, and if the characters are in any way aware of those continuity reboots, that would be incredibly nihilistic if you were a hero who did kill their nemesis only to have their nemesis come back or be retconned back into existence every 5 minutes.
Yeah, but again, like, okay, ultimately, I don't want to bring this point up yet because it's too early in the video. But I feel like I've made my point at the moment, so Don, if you would like to, please.
Yeah, okay. Here's my thing, and I think Brainstormer was kind of trying to get at this. So if I end up overlapping with what Brainstormer was trying to say, that's as it may be. But here's the thing. The Lotus Eaters and company seem to believe that the mere existence of characters with different moral compasses than them is somehow propagandistic, i.e., every character has to be a semi-nihilistic pragmatist who views capital or corporal punishment as the default. They have to be the norm or shown to be in the right, or the writer is somehow being a propaganda pusher or something. But here's the thing. There are characters who do that. There are characters like Deadpool. There are characters like the Punisher. There are characters like there are characters like Constantine and other assorted anti-heroes who do, skirt that moral line or don't particularly give a damn about the moral line in the fucking first place. But here's the thing. Especially in a medium where we as the audience have a God's eye view of the universe, it is perfectly legitimate to show people with different philosophical worldviews, and if it is in character for those people with different philosophical worldviews to exist, then they should be allowed to be shown to be in the right when they're in the right, in the wrong when they're in the wrong, or leave it ambiguous when it's ambiguous. And Superman's character specifically is about idealism, altruism, and compassion slash benevolence to a fault or almost a fault. That is who Superman is as a character. If you want somebody who uses darkness as a weapon against darkness, you have your Batman, your Punisher, your Deadpool, your Daredevil. Yeah, that is specifically not who Superman is. Superman is the counterbalance to that. If Batman's sort of philosophical raison d'etre is using darkness and fear and terror as a weapon against darkness and fear and terror, which it basically has ever since, his origin issue, criminals are superstitious, cowardly lots, so I will use fear as my weapon, blah blah. If that is Batman's raison d'etre, then I put it to you that Superman's similar raison d'etre is to be a light that burns so bright that the darkness simply has no purchase in him.
Okay, I'll read the turtle. I will read your comment, Dragon Turtle, and then we'll move back to the video. Because I was gonna say that.
Well, I had something else I wanted to say before I finish, but
Okay,
go ahead.
Please. No.
What I was going to say, and I was going to bring it back to the way that they're approaching this. Harry and the other folks at Lotus Eaters, or at least the guy he's with in this video, seem to view people with different worldviews or different philosophical outlooks on life to be a necessary evil or an inconvenience that has to be dealt with. Whereas I would actually view people with different worldviews and different philosophical outlooks on life as not just a inconvenience that must be dealt with for pragmatic reasons. I think there should be people with different worldviews, and there should be people with different perspectives. If for no other reason, then it prevents purity spiraling. Because if you view one perspective as the truth or the correct perspective, sooner or later your belief system will find itself in a reductio ad absurdum. The multiplicity of worldviews and the multiplicity of perspectives and the multiplicity of people acting on different worldviews prevents this in no small part. I wouldn't want to live in a world where everyone was a carbon copy of me and thought exactly the same way as I do, because even though I am definitely more on, well, frankly, I'm nowhere on the Batman versus Superman spectrum because, my guy is Dr. Fate. My guy is Dream of the Endless, and so on. But I'm more sympathetic to the Batman way of doing things than I am to the Superman way of doing things. But here's the thing. Much like I've often said about Lex Luthor, I agree philosophically more with Lex Luthor than I do with Clark Kent. But I want to be wrong. I want to be incorrect when I say that no one can possibly be that pure or that decent or that good. And that's why I have respect for people like Brainstormer, who are definitely more on the Superman side of things, who are more close to the incorruptible paragon of goodness than the always pragmatic paragon of violent justice. And in a sane world, you have those perspectives balancing each other out and sort of acting as guardrails for each other. That's why both Clark and Bruce consider each other their best friends, because while they have philosophical disagreements, they both can see the merit in the other's perspective and can even rely on each other to be a second opinion when their beliefs get a little bit too purity spirally.
All right. Also, I want to point out, compared to the Menagerie, the character in the bottom center of the photo here,
Mm-hmm.
I don't know why I like her design here more than I liked in the movie. But that could just be because like they had to do a more simplistic design.
Mm-hmm. Could very well just be the art style, but it's worth noting.
Well, I appreciate that, Dragon Drill. I don't think I'm as I don't know. I don't think I'm that like big. I don't think I'm that like close to Superman as you think I am. But I appreciate the
And
sentiment.
that humility is another reason to think that, sir. Just pointing out the obvious philosophical irony there. Because, ironically, Clark Kent probably doesn't think of himself as this perfect paragon that everyone else thinks he is. But that doesn't prevent him from being that. That's just another component of why he is that.
All right. Shall we banana?
Yes, we shall. Quintessentially banana.
There we go. All right. Now.
Whatever they're doing. The problem is that in killing these villains, a lot of the times they end up with a lot of collateral damage. And I think, honestly, this is a sleight of hand trick by Joe Kelly to make it less excusable that they kill people. Because if they were hyper competent and were able to kill people without the collateral damage.
Okay, but the very same quote unquote realism or principled nihilism that you are lauding the elite for, that very same realism TM that you apparently like about them so much, is exactly why they can't be hyper competent or can't be portrayed as hyper competent, because in the cold light of reality TM, there is always collateral damage and moral ambiguity. You cannot have it both ways. If you like the pragmatic nihilism and the realism TM, then you have to live by that standard. You have to be hoisted by that petard. If you want them to abide by a higher standard, well then guess what? That will eventually lead you to the kind of idealism and the kind of altruism which Superman is repping here. You morons. You can't have it both ways. Or, well, you could if you believed, like I do, that other perspectives are not simply an inconvenience to be dealt with, they are a necessary, reasonable balance for a functioning universe. Like, if you believed that there can be multiple valid perspectives that all need to commingle and counterbalance each other, then you would be allowed to say, you like that they do this, you don't like that they do that. But you want it all of one and none of the other. You want it all the pragmatic nihilistic realism and none of the principled idealism. You think the principled idealism is stupid, in which case you're going to wind up on a slippery slope whereby if the pragmatic nihilism is the standard of goodness, then it's going to eventually slip into, well, then let's just kill indiscriminately because it might be circumstantially justified in the most extreme of circumstances. You need someone who is a principled, idealistic altruist to act as a counterbalance for that, because again, the multiplicity of valid viewpoints, if nothing else, is at least a protection against purity spiraling and reductio ad absurdum scenarios. You need to understand that there are reasonable limitations to your moral your moral worldview and your moral perspective. And because you can't see that, you think that Superman isn't just a character whose philosophy on life or philosophy on goodness is different from yours, but you actually think he's dumb for being that idealist, even though that's exactly who Superman is and who he has been for the lion's share of his production history, because that's who people actually want and need him to be. Sorry.
No, I don't.
They piss me off.
I think he's pretty much covered all the points I would have said, but in a far more elegant and educated manner.
I appreciate the compliment, but I am sorry that I that I kind of filibustered there. This is supposed to be your show. I'm just guessing in this case.
I mean, the fact that they're trying to justify collateral damage. Well, no, not trying to.
They're claiming that the writer is morally uncharitable and propagandistic for including collateral damage. They're trying to say that the writer is strawmanning the pragmatic perspective.
Not disagreeing with that. Well, no, not disagreeing with the point you're making of what they're saying, of how they interpreted it.
Mm.
What I am going to point out is, again, they're young folk who are being very, quote unquote, punk about the established order of. Well, also, again, collateral damage is normal for superheroes often. Like, that just happens. So
yeah, it's like I was saying earlier. If you like the nihilistic realism and the pragmatism, then you have to come to terms with the fact that therefore that very same pragmatism and that very same realism is going to lead to an inevitable amount of collateral damage. The only alternative is the kind of principled altruism thing.
All right. Actually, Jonah did bring up a good point. Didn't they, the Lotus Eaters, just ruin the whole point of the talk when they just said that?
Yes, they did, but they will continue to dig themselves in even deeper because this is what they do. This is simultaneously why I had to send this to Brainstormer when it came out back in the day, and why it's taken us so long to get to them, because when they get on the topic of art or anything that's not directly related to politics, they shit the bed because they are ideologues for like traditionalism and quote unquote realism in the nominal like nihilistic sense that most people use realism. Like you can see what they're doing here. They think that the elite is correct and based for calling Superman a idealistic pansy, basically.
You know what? No, I'm gonna, because it coincides with the point I was gonna bring up later, and so I'm not gonna bring it up now.
Yep. Banana.
Yeah. Okay. We're only a minute 20 into this motherfuck.
Yep. Banana.
Then there would be it would be really difficult to argue against them. But they're so careless, they're so cartoonishly careless that they always end up killing thousands of people in the process of saving people. They end up, I think the first time you see what they've done, they killed a giant gorilla.
So what happens is Superman.
Okay, hold on. But don't, I feel like you're gonna say something, but I want to say this first.
Please. Again, this is your show defending your character. I'm going to try to limit myself somewhat here.
Okay, so this is going to be weird, but I feel it is prescient. No. Prescient? No.
Prescient?
Thank you. Prescient. Am I using that word right?
I think so. If you mean that this is indicative of something they're probably going to do later, or are you going in the direction of the collateral damage is presented that way for a goddamn reason?
Yes. Yeah. That.
Yeah. Then it was prescient of the author to put it that way. I think is what you're trying to get at.
Thank you. It was prescient of the author because. Bear in mind,
that kind of collateral damage is unavoidable in that circumstance.
That, and it is indicative of. Bear with me that I bring up this comparison. How I hate doing this. indicative of real world situations given overwhelming military force that, like certain operations that like the US government has done in years past, that have caused massive amounts of like casualties and damage.
No, it's perfectly legitimate to bring the realism point up, because one of the reasons they like the Elite is because they are more realistic TM. So they brought the realism card to the deck. They can't get mad when you play it against them.
Right. And the reason why I'm bringing that up is, again, like, look, I'm American till I die, but I'm not going to deny my gut that I despise the American government and the military industrial complex that kind of exists. Based on the knowledge I have of it, which is rather limited, I'm going to be fully honest on that. But from what I gather of it, it's not great. And has caused a lot of great damage and justifies it however they seem to, with some type of morality, propaganda bullshit they always try to spiel to the masses, when in actuality they cause so much suffering and to innocent people or bystanders or whatever for their selfish, greedy goals, which is very indicative of the Elite and how they operate.
Yeah. It's like I said earlier.
Hold on. I just want to say this one point. The Elite convince themselves that they're doing good while justifying to themselves on an internal level that doing all this horrible, nasty, fucked up shit was necessary for others to be safe. And that leads to a lot of messed up conclusions that would not be great for a lot of people.
Yeah. Which is why I said the thing earlier about, if you like the realism as softcore nihilism and you like the pragmatic violence for pragmatic violence's sake thing, then you can't ignore what that means in practice. If you like the realism, then you have to actually play the ball where it lies and not be overly charitable towards that very same realism. And in reality, when those with disproportionate amounts of power indiscriminately do things violently or destructively or aggressively for the sake of some larger goal, there is always collateral damage. The philosophical counterbalance to that is Spider-Man's "with great power comes great responsibility," or in this case, Superman's principled idealistic altruism. The principle that there is a higher standard, and that those with power should restrain their use of that power as much as they can feasibly do so. But again, these people want to... Again, in a sane world, both of these perspectives are necessary for a reasonable functioning world. Because both perspectives have limitations that will get ignored if they're allowed to purity spiral into what's known as a reductio ad absurdum. But in a world where both perspectives are valid and both perspectives are allowed to coexist and counterbalance each other, we can find a happy distribution, which means you need the occasional anti-hero, you need the occasional Constantine or Manchester Black, but you also still need the idealist who will be uncompromising in the face of moral gray areas to counterbalance that anti-hero's desire to do everything the easy, quote-unquote, realistic way, TM. And Clark knows this because, again, Superman and Batman are best friends, and they are at opposite ends of this spectrum, for the most part. The only exception is Batman's no-kill rule. But even then, if Batman did forego that no-kill rule for whatever reason, I don't think Clark would myopically abandon him. I think he would see some validity to the perspective, just like when the Red Hood thing happens, I don't think they ever get Superman's perspective on it in that comic because it's a Batman story first and foremost. But I can imagine that Clark, being the ever compassionate symbol of light and good and purity that he is mostly probably just thinking, "Oh dear God, after what they did to Jason, no wonder he's such no wonder after all the things they did to him that he's so bitter, because he probably has compassion for Jason's pain, because again, compassion is one of Superman's defining characteristics."
Okay. Jonah Arts, the Elite are not. The thing is, this is similar to talks I've heard from different groups like Clownfish TV. Also, here's the thing: you can kill people without minimum collateral, but you need to have discipline to do so. The thing is, you need discipline. The Elite are not like that, but you will still get a lot of damages. The harsh truth is that you can't save everyone, yet heroes like can more often than not. Superman found a better way to make sure they don't have it. He just removed their abilities and used their logic against them for it, which they hated.
It's also, it must be said, he didn't actually, at least not in Superman vs. the Elite, and I don't think he did in the comics either. His suspending of their abilities is precisely that. It is a suspension. He does not remove them outright. Because again, Superman's perspective is one characterized by incorruptible moral purity. Batman is using darkness to fight darkness. Superman is a light that burns so bright and so uncompromisingly that the darkness has no purchase in him. And again, you need both of these perspectives. And no, I'm sorry, Jonah, but discipline in and of itself isn't going to cut it. Are you telling me that Stephen Lang's character from Avatar is fine doing what he's doing because he has discipline? Or that Gunny from Full Metal Jacket can do no wrong because he has discipline? No, discipline does not make this kind of bullshit okay. Again, you need a balance of both perspectives. And if at all possible, you need other perspectives as well. Like, for example, my favorite character is Dr. Fate, who doesn't particularly give two shits about petty human mortal morality because he adheres to an even higher standard than that. As we saw in the Justice League animated series episode The Return, when even the Martian Manhunter was going, "We have to defeat Amazo because something the greater good."
Hey,
Dr. Fate was I know I'm going far afield here, but my point is that you need a multiplicity of perspectives. In this case, yes, you need both the Batman pragmatism perspective and the Superman idealism perspective, but there are even other perspectives than that, a la the Dr. Fate perspective. And so on.
D'Angelo said, again, I hope Jonah could clarify a little bit. But I think, and it seems Rand Turtle thinks as well, that Jonah was saying that collateral could be avoided with discipline.
To a degree, but there will always be that intrinsic moral violation. There will always be that intrinsic moral violation, and that's why I gave the examples of Stephen Lang's character from Avatar. Discipline doesn't automatically make things that aren't okay.
Alright, Drangelo, by the way, got buried, but leftists believe in a blank slate that everyone is shaped by society and can be infinitely reshaped. Their right believes in determinism, and thus things can only be purified with purges. Thus, when you get totalitarians who must make every speck in the universe bend to their beliefs, leftists want to reorder society and the right to start purging.
And both are psychotically authoritarian numbskulls who need to make allowances for freedom and multiplicity. But that's
okay, And Jonah said, I literally said there is still a lot of issues that comes from it.
And that's fair, but just I apologize if I missed that, Jonah. I just that there is a worrying side of things on the right that says discipline is the solution to all things. Being an ascetic is the solution to all things. Denying yourself any sort of indulgence ever is the solution to all things. And the guys from the Lotus Eaters are the sort of guys who would say something to the effect of, well, as long as they're disciplined about it, then that collateral damage can be negated entirely, or is actually morally good if it's done through discipline and shit. So,
hey, Don.
Yeah.
Jonah was saying they forgot to edit the statement they had said, so I think it was just like misinterpretation based on the writing of it. But yeah, the saying you can lessen it, but there's still a lot of issues that come from it. Plus, discipline has a lot of different forms, but your view is your view. Okay, but yeah, that. Okay, we'll wait 1 sec for them to post what they what they were trying to write originally, which caused this kind of like whole back and forth here.
Yeah, and again, I apologize, Jonah. It might have been somewhat on my end too. The reason I got so hard up on it is because the Lotus Eaters are the sort of people who can't go, well, if it's done by a properly disciplined military man, then it's good by definition, derp.
I just realized in the split screen they have here, there's a comic of Identity Crisis from DC.
They also did a video on that. I think it wasn't unique enough or stupid enough that I felt inclined to send it.
Okay, I don't know anything about Identity Crisis actually.
I know I sent one about Kingdom Come as well.
No, yeah, we got that. It's in our backlogs.
Yeah.
But I've never really heard of Identity Crisis.
I'll have to send you some of Linkara's videos on it. They're really good.
Wait, is that the one involving Dr. Light being like a rapist?
I think so, and I think it's also the one where they mind wipe They have Zatanna mind wipe Batman because he catches them doing something untoward, and he won't stand for it. I might be thinking of a different story. That might be Countdown, but I think Identity Crisis was also the one where they use Zatanna's magic to mind wipe Batman.
Right, and Elongated Man's wife died, right?
Right, Sudibni. Yeah.
I've heard okay, so now I've seen bits and pieces. I just never knew the name for it.
Like I said, I will send you the Linkara reviews on it. They're really good, and it's from before Linkara kind of went a little bit politically nuts himself.
Everyone apparently does. I don't get it.
Yeah, the staring too long into the abyss thing. I think at least somewhat.
Anyway, let's continue. Just because, like, God,
banana.
We're an hour in, and we've only gotten like a minute 40 of this.
They pack so much stupidity into so small a space, though. It's the good fella problem of it takes 5 minutes to spray shit all over the room. It takes all day to clean up the shit that someone just sprayed all over the room.
All right.
Banana.
And is flying around the world solving all sorts of different disasters. Bear in mind, this is one issue as well. It's hyper compressed, which is quite impressive, but the actual logic of the storytelling is
So
bad.
I think the hyper compression of it means that there's no wiggle room to explore this topic with any nuance.
True, and I think this is the symptom of the same criticism we had with Mark Waid's depiction of Superman, in that the author is using.
Okay, hold on. I don't disagree. I don't.
Yeah, that's
disagree
the first sensible thing they've said this entire time. It
that
would have
really should
benefited from being a miniseries.
or an arc in Joe Carey's. No, what was his name again?
Joe Kelly.
Joe Kelly. Thank you. Joe Kelly's Superman run. But I am curious what they're going to say. Unless you had anything else to add on.
No. That's fine. Go ahead.
Okay. I'm curious what they're going to say about Mark Waid, or really how the writers are using Superman. Hold on, let me check the chat. Okay. Thank you. John Arts, your perspective is a thing that is hard to change, but you can be disciplined to limit some things like Collateral. But how you view things is how you deal with things, and yet you see how some people are. They are either like how Superman is, pure and uncorrupted, or you see from the Avatar character two different people with discipline, yet one is good, the other evil. I hate how we have 250 characters to work with. I hate how we only have 250. Okay, the type.
I didn't realize that. I didn't realize that was a thing on YouTube comments or chat comments.
YouTube and it's broadcast to YouTube.
I knew it was a thing on Twitter, but I didn't think it was a thing on.
YouTube has like limited. Like I've been on live chats before. There's a limit to things.
Oh right, there is a live chat limit. Okay, yeah, yeah. Fuck YouTube for doing that thing. And again, I think at the bottom of all of this, the Lotus Eaters seem to view people with other perspectives or other worldviews as an inconvenience to be endured for pragmatism's sake, whereas I view people with multiple perspectives to be a necessary thing. Like, even if I had the Thanos, if I had the Infinity Gauntlet and I could snap anything I disliked out of existence and shit, even if that were the case, I wouldn't delete people or their perspectives that disagreed with mine. Like, even perspectives that are wrong should exist so that they can be argued with. Like, the correct way to fight someone who is fundamentally wrong, as I think we've lived by for a while now on this channel, is to argue with them and point out exactly where and how they are being dubbed, like we are currently doing. Moving on.
1 sec. And I also the whole 200. Yeah, it does suck, the 250 characters thing. I've had to shorten full paragraphs into a couple sentences sometimes when I myself was just going through live streams and typing into live chats. Jonah, it's just God.
Yeah, it happens. YouTube is forever more dumb until they fix themselves, as we know.
That's never gonna happen. Jonah,
until Elon buys them, like he bought Twitter. Lol.
So I often do 2 or 3 comments in a row. Yeah, that's fair. No, I agree with you on that. For the Lotus Eaters, also they chose the wrong flower to be for what you are. That's Joan Arts. I agree with you on that for the Lotus Eaters, how they work and stuff, and also they chose the wrong flower to be for what they are.
Yeah, given that the Lotus Eaters in actual Greek mythology and in Homer's Odyssey and stuff were all about pleasure and essentially drugging anyone who visited their island so that they could be pleasant and happy. It's a very weird choice to. It's a very weird choice to make for a group that is very heavily like TradCon oriented. Now, mind you, when the Lotus Eaters were originally like when this organization was originally conceived, they weren't quite so radically TradCon, so that might be part of the reason why. But shortly after the founding of the Lotus Eaters, they began to spiral into TradCon territory.
Oh god. Oh fuck.
What
Yeah,
happened?
I was drinking a Gatorade. I didn't notice the difference of zero sugar Gatorades before because I'm trying to cut down on sugar. But yeah, I'm now starting to taste the difference. It's not great.
Well, you know what they say, a spoonful of sugar helps the medicine go down. Sorry.
Zero sugar equals more salt.
Uh-huh.
Wait, hold on. Holy shit! This thing has 160 milligrams of sodium in it.
You do know that electrolytes are salts, right? That's a thing with pretty much all Gatorades.
I did not know that, actually.
Yeah.
Okay, learn something new. Okay. It has 50 milligrams of potassium too.
Again, given that electrolytes are essentially salts that help your body cling to nutrients better, that
Right,
doesn't surprise me.
Drenchel, I think the idea is supposed to be that society's eating the velocities.
Yeah, I remember Sargon explained once why he was going with the Lotus Eaters for his new endeavor and stuff, and he said something about how like the Lotus from the Lotus Eaters expanded your mind, and that was kind of the route he was thinking of going with the new channel. But still, for a group that is so vehemently TradCon and so harshly like non-irreverent now, it's a weird name for them to have picked. Then again, I don't imagine that Sargon circa 2019 could have foreseen where Sargon circa 2023 or 2024 is winding up.
All right. Drenchel, it's like them calling themselves the Matrix because you are in it to take my red pill.
Yeah, it's a bit weird. Anyway, shall we banana again?
We were literally just 2 minutes in. So yeah.
Banana.
No.
Of the same criticism we had with Mark Waid's depiction of Superman, in that the author is using and inheriting characters that have an established rapport with the audience as a mouthpiece for their own values, and so many people trusting Superman, even though it's been handed to a different author, and respecting Superman, take the values that Superman espouses as being sensible on the face of it. So it's
okay, but that is literally what you all are doing, because you have an issue with Superman being an altruistic idealist, which he has been for at least 60 out of the 90 years that he's existed.
I mean, to be fair, in a general context, given modern comics or the comics in the last decade or so, they're not wrong, but I do think they are incorrect here.
Yeah,
obviously.
no, that is a thing that happens. The fucked up part is they are accusing Joe Kelly of doing that, when, as per the entire Superman fandom, he is writing Superman as Superman is to be written according to pretty much all the people who like Superman. Because again, pretty much for the last 50 or 60 years, again, I will specify that because in the earliest parts of the Golden Age, they were still kind of figuring out who the characters were and where their niches were and stuff. So you did occasionally get Superman being written out of what we would think of as his established character. But no, Joe Kelly is following who Superman is to its logical conclusion in What's So Funny About Truth, Justice, and the American Way. And that's why so many people love What's So Funny About Truth, Justice, and the American Way, because that's exactly who Superman is. He is compassionate to a fault. He is idealistic. He is altruistic. Again, if Batman's sort of broad strokes, raison d'etre, is using darkness and terror and fear to fight darkness and terror and fear, Superman's version of that, Superman's like ethos, is a light that burns so bright and so incorruptibly that the darkness simply cannot change him, cannot mark him, cannot find purchase in him. Superman is like, much like Captain America or Spider-Man, Spider-Man less so. They have common ground because of the whole "with great power comes great responsibility." But much like Captain America or a lot of other very idealistic characters who are defined by that idealism and that altruism and that compassion to a fault, that hope, that joy, that purity, etc. Superman is supposed to be just that good. That's the thing that annoys Lex Luthor about him in most versions of the characters. Because Lex wants Superman to look at things through an almost Ayn Randian perspective of I have the power, therefore I decide what's good. And Superman doesn't do that. And it baffles and frustrates Lex Luthor that someone as quote unquote all powerful as Superman can be that pure, that innocent, that good, that he can just be that good, and that the world's darkness or the world's pragmatism doesn't find purchase in him. And that's also what a lot of the deconstructions of Superman either don't get or have contempt for, which is so many of the deconstructions of Superman, be it Homelander, be it Omni-Man, be it Ultraman, be it Red Sun Superman, etc. All of them seem to believe that the ultimate criticism of Superman is that simply no one can be that good. And that you can't actually be that good, so people must be faking it, or people must be doing it for ideological reasons or whatever the fuck. But no, Superman, much like Captain America in the MCU, just is that good, just is that pure, just is that larger-than-life symbol of light and purity that cannot be corrupted. The difference between Lex Luthor and Bruce Wayne or Batman is that while Bruce disagrees with Clark philosophically, he at least admires Superman for his idealism, instead of viewing him in contempt like Lex does. That's the fundamental difference between Lex Luthor and Batman as they relate to Superman. Both of them are dark mirror images of Superman to some degree, but I think Batman comes to it from the perspective that I come to it with, which is I do find it hard to believe that someone that powerful can also be that good, but I hope that I'm wrong someday. I hope that there is someone that incorruptible, that pure, that bright and shining that cannot be corrupted, because that would be a good thing if such a person were to exist.
Moving on.
Yep.
All right.
Banana.
Yeah, back up. No.
A very deceptive technique.
I'm sorry, writers are very good at it. They're very bad at it now, but
Yep.
writers used to be much better at taking values that they already held and putting them in the mouths of superheroes as a way to try and legitimize those values.
Yep.
Just because Superman is saying that something is the case.
Okay, hold up. I don't want to say anything yet because they haven't finished their point.
Okay. I will also hold my thoughts as well until they finish.
I mean, to be fair, again, the whole thing we talked about too is like they're not wrong in case of
That is a thing that happens, and it is very annoying when it does happen. But they are looking at a writer trying to write Superman as Superman is written, taking Superman as read, and following it to something resembling a logical conclusion for the sake of storytelling. And they are assuming that Joe Kelly is the ideologue trying to twist Superman instead of them being the ideologue trying to twist Superman because they don't like that he's an idealistic altruist because they think idealistic altruism and like almost universal compassion and a leaning towards pacifism is stupid or something, or that it's childish, or that people who believe that way are just stupid and silly and need to grow up. TM.
moving on.
Yep. Banana.
Banana.
Doesn't mean it's the case. Just the same as just because Batman in more recent issues of Batman has been teaming up with Antifa, doesn't mean you have to support Antifa. That's where you can see the hand of the writer moving. And with an issue like this, I found it very clear that this was neoliberal propaganda.
Okay, stop.
As far as
Okay, what the fuck?
Stop. Yeah. This in philosophy is what we refer to, kids, as a false equivalency. Because while, yes, there are people, and they are very, very, very frustrating, who turn the superheroes into mouthpieces regardless of their characters, you are looking at an example of Superman being written correctly and assuming that because Superman philosophically disagrees with you, that therefore it must be being used as an ideological weapon. Okay, and this goes back to what I opened this with, which is characters with different philosophical perspectives is a thing that should exist, especially if the audience is given something equivalent to a God's eye view. For example, the Question has basically, since his inception as a character, been a Randian objectivist character. And even though I find it annoying when Zack Snyder tries to turn Superman into a Randian objectivist, I don't begrudge the Question being written as a Randian objectivist because that is who the character is and has been for the majority of the characters run, and actually adds meaningful philosophical depth to the character. Same thing when Green Arrow is written as a leftist. He actually is a leftist and has been written as one basically since the character's modern inception. That's why, for example, in the Cadmus story arc of Justice League Unlimited, he said, quote, "I'm an old lefty. The government must do for people what they cannot do for themselves," in regards to the Cadmus story arc. You may disagree with that character's philosophical perspective, but A, that is not a straw man of a position that a character like Green Arrow would take under this circumstance, and B, it's treated as a neutral display of philosophy and a display of consistent character rather than a necessary condemnation or endorsement of that perspective. And a great example of this is, in fact, the Cadmus story arc from Justice League Unlimited, because there you had people of all sorts of different perspectives, including the Question and his Randian objectivist bullshit, and Green Arrow and his old school lefty bullshit. But they both were able to, A, not be strawmanned by the writers, i.e. the writers cared enough to accurately represent these perspectives and the characters who would hold them, and B, is actually consistent with the ethos of the character, that the sort of ideal of the character that has been consistent throughout their entire modern production history. And Superman, in that same vein, has pretty much, since the inception of the modern character or the modern continuity, been an idealistic altruist. That is who he is, that is who he has always been, and more importantly, that is who he is when other characters are being in opposition to him and being used to juxtapose him, which in my mind is almost more important. Because if Superman was sort of untethered to any consistent character, you could make this argument maybe that the character is being used erroneously as a mouthpiece. But when that character interacts with other characters and maintains a consistent philosophy from storyline to storyline or from issue to issue, that is part of what makes that character consistent then. Yes. Banana, sorry.
No, that's fair. I didn't really have anything. I think you pretty much covered the points there. All right, let me. All right, Banana.
Banana.
As I'm concerned.
So the issue opens with Superman being distracted, and by the time he arrives at Tripoli in Libya, a giant mutant robot gorilla modeled off of Kilgore, which was another Image creation. See our last episode on Kingdom Come and 90s comics on the history of that. Flattening the city, but having been ripped into shreds. Now,
okay, hold on. No, wasn't. No, I'm thinking. I'm not. Okay, never mind.
Mm-hmm.
Because I know he fought a giant. There was there's a giant ape that Superman goes up against, but it's not Kilgore. Or called Kilgore.
Right.
I
think
remember.
it's just supposed to be a generic, giant monster in this particular
No,
case.
it has a name. It has a name. And has been used in multiple in multiple stories and stuff. So.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
I don't really have anything to say here. So.
Banana.
Yep. Let me get to the tab.
there are obviously questions about how did a gorilla get this giant, what the hell is in that gun, but
this is an incredibly obvious manufactured situation to make you not sympathize for the elites.
But the point being is that what would Superman have done but not kill the giant creature? Now, he could have taken it in space, so he wouldn't have flattened the city. That would have been
where
an
it would have
improvement.
suffocated, presumably.
Yeah, exactly.
Or knock the motherfucker out, carry his body somewhere else.
Yeah, led him away from a densely populated city. Led him to somewhere where him being giant wouldn't have been a massive inconvenience. Like maybe, I don't know what the DC equivalent of the Savage Land is, but I do know they have
Dinosaur Island.
that's yeah. That he could have knocked him out and flown him over there. He could, like, there are solutions, and how. Is anybody gonna ask the question of whether the giant gorilla even knew it was, like, is the giant gorilla intelligent enough to know it's destroying things, or is it just a giant stampeding animal? And yes, that is a relevant question because there are sapient gorillas in the DC universe, and it is a relevant question as to whether this is an act of malice, i.e., if the giant gorilla is trying to destroy things for the sake of destroying things, or if this is an act of, this is a giant animal who wound up in a populated area by accident and basically wound up destroying things because it's a stampeding animal. Yeah.
I do find it interesting that their first thought is that he flies it into space, which would kill it.
I think the argument they're going to try to make is that anyone in Superman's place would have killed the Thing. Which, no. Superman doesn't even like to be mean to Lex Luthor if he can feasibly avoid it. Like,
Oh, okay. You're gonna fight me on this, Dalton. But Superman is not above killing, but is ultimately, like when he's written well, it is an absolute last resort.
and it hurts him to do so.
Yes.
Like he's going to, if he is in a situation where he is forced to kill, he is going to agonize over it thereafter.
Yeah, I mean, like, look at Alan Moore's Whatever Happened to the Man Tomorrow, where he killed Mrs. Spitlick because Mrs. Spitlick killed all the other heroes.
Which, I mean, yeah, at that point. Also, keep in mind that Mixie's Pitlink is so many orders of magnitude stronger, and has so many more abilities than Superman. So in that case, he's actually punching up for once.
Yeah, but also let's not forget that. Okay, if I'm recalling that story correctly, at the end, he uses gold kryptonite, which takes away his powers forever, to become an ordinary man because he feels like he doesn't deserve to be.
He feels as though he misused his powers, and so he is going to self-impose a punishment thereupon.
Yeah. But yeah, like Superman is not above killing, but it's not something. Again, I think
his default is compassion, regardless of any other circumstance.
I mean, like even Batman, when he's written right, and oftentimes he isn't because people think he's just an edgy motherfucker, like an edgy sociopath.
Yeah, thank you, Frank Miller. I love Dark Knight Returns, but my fucking god, that the Frank Miller approach to Batman really screwed that character over long term.
Right.
Same thing with Alan Moore. I like a lot of Alan Moore's stories and things, but when Alan Moore became the industry standard, it kind of fucked the industry over.
Well, I'm saying is, Batman believes in redemption, hence why he doesn't. That's another reason why he doesn't kills anyone. Like, I mean, granted, I don't think I think the Joker is beyond redemption because the guy is actively choosing to be that monster. But I don't think it should be Batman that kills him because he wins in the end for that. Like Joker, I mean.
What was the story where they had the conversation at the end about the two escaped mental patients? One of them has a flashlight and
Killing Joke. I feel like you're fucking with me on that one.
I just didn't remember if it was Killing Joke or if it was another one of the stories where that happened. But point being, for all that Joker and Batman are adversarial to each other, I think they both honestly wouldn't know what to do without the other. And in the case of like Superman and Lex, it's less that and more. I think at the end of the day, Clark wants to see Luthor make good. He wants to see Luthor come to his senses and become a better person. And I say that because it's definitely indicative of something. The fact that Batman and Lex Luthor probably have more philosophical agreements with each other than either of them do with Clark. And yet, Superman's worst enemy and his best friend are very philosophically similar. And again, I think the difference is where Lex has contempt for Clark because he is this cinnamon roll, this purer than driven snow idealist. Batman Bruce actually respects Clark for that higher standard that he holds himself to. And I think at the end of the day, if Lex Luthor honestly made an effort to go good and honestly made an effort to make amends, for the shit he's done, then Clark would have no problem with Lex standing over right next to Batman and becoming one of his best friends and closest confidants. And I think in Clark's mind, he would rather see somebody like Luthor be redeemed, i.e., stop being a bad guy and come over and join the good guys, we have cookies, etc., than see him dead. Clark does not hate Lex. He hates that he can't help him, I think, more than anything.
All right. Again, and we're not going to get into the whole thing of like with like the Joker. You know, honestly, given everything he's done, he's certifiably sane.
Yeah, no, I'm definitely more on Jason's side of that particular argument. Fuck.
No, my thing is, it shouldn't be. I don't get why everyone says Batman has to kill him when it could legitimately just be the fucking courts. Or some random motherfucker. Like, seriously, it's America. It's fun. Like, I would imagine the people that live in Gotham all own fucking guns.
And it's not like the Joker has superhuman abilities that make him immune to like gunfire or something. Like if this were Zod, then okay, you'd have a point. But nah, the Joker is, as far as we know, just as vulnerable to gunfire as everyone the fuck else. So,
well, I mean, no, he's been shot a lot of time. Again, it's a whole comic convenience bullshit.
Right, but my point is he doesn't have powers. There is no superhuman factor preventing the average Joe Blow off the street from going in and Luigi and Angie owning the shit out of the Joker.
Really?
Topical.
Well, unless you count Super Sanity.
Well, yeah, his meta awareness that winds up being super saiyan. But that doesn't prevent him from being affected by bullets or explosives or gunfire or anything or landmines or anything the fuck else. Like he is, for all intents and purposes, a normal fucking human.
Right, but yeah, again, it's just not my opinion. Given all the crazy shit he's done, like the elaborate planning and stuff, by definition, okay, I would say he's a psychopath, right?
Yeah.
That's
Well,
obvious.
sociopath, because he wants to inflict his bullshit onto all of society, which is the defining characteristic of a sociopath.
Well, I mean, a psychopath has no empathy for other people, or
Right, but the distinguishing factor between a psychopath and a sociopath is a psychopath is fine having whatever ordinary ambitions they have. A sociopath wants to inflict their chaos and damage onto all of society. That's why the prefix socio is in sociopath. They want to inflict their shit onto society at large.
Okay, fair enough. Yeah, I wouldn't argue he's a sociopath, but he's not. The fact that he's not mentally incompetent. I guess the best way I can say it. But in terms of legal terminology, there's no reason why the motherfucker should have been sent to Arkham. Well, Okay.
Sorry. Hopefully my phone starts by hitting itself again. I wasn't paying enough attention.
Oh no, that was me. I was the one who was crapping out.
Well, my phone also died in the interim, so guess we both guess there was a weird cosmic jinx thing going on here.
Okay, but we're back. We're back.
Yeah.
For now. Let me pull it up again. Where I was in the middle of talking, I think, when it started to cut out. But I guess just signal for us to move on.
Yep, and hopefully everything lasts long enough for us to finish.
Knock on wood.
I can't move because the angle will fuck with my phone. So you're gonna have to do it.
All right. There.
Okay.
All right. Yeah, shall we? Let's.
Banana.
Banana.
Exactly, or it just stuck it in the Phantom Zone where it could have gotten out again, like every time he puts General Zod
Like
there.
every time he
Oh,
puts
for
anything
fuck's
in the
sake.
Phantom Zone.
You realize there are
not great.
there are
So
millions of criminals who haven't ever gotten out of the Phantom Zone, right?
Or Aquaman would have killed it.
Yeah, because Aquaman's based, but or dropped it off in Gorilla City where Gorilla Grodd could have.
You know, Gorilla Grodd doesn't own Gorilla City, right? Like, he's exiled from there.
He is one of the super intelligent apes among many super intelligent apes in the DC universe.
And most of the apes in Gorilla City don't want shit to do with humanity. They just want to live their fucking lives.
Yeah, they're hyper intelligent and advanced beyond like normal human standards. That's one of the reasons why Gorilla Grodd is exiled from there, because he's one of the lone malcontent motherfuckers.
He just wants the fuck. Okay, don't. Okay, to kind of copy this meme. Show me how does it go? Tell me you don't read comics without telling me you don't read comics.
Which is weird because they have an entire segment on this show about, they call it Comics Corner, and this is one of those episodes. So again, I think this is less of a they don't actually read the material and more just they don't pay attention to the in-universe logic because they're too busy projecting their ideology.
That seems to be fucking commonplace now.
Yeah, and yet they will criticize the wokeoids for doing the exact same thing. This is the fundamental hypocrisy. These people seem to want to use like woke strategies and shit. They just want to use it for the other team. They want to use it for like traditionalism and capital F, capital V family values and shit. They don't seem to understand that the tactics of the woke are the equivalent of the One Ring, and the best thing everyone can do is to destroy the motherfucking thing, not try to use it against Sauron. Cast it into the fire, destroy it, etc. But
yeah. Let me get that tab.
Used it to destroy all of humanity. Anyway, point being, look, Superman would have had to kill it, no matter what.
So no, he wouldn't have.
Question as to, in this scenario, should Superman have killed the giant, monstrous, rampaging gorilla? It's should the collateral damage have happened in it? It's fair to say the elite is careless, but the entire comic makes the point of the elite shouldn't kill. Well, here, Superman would have killed this thing as well.
Well, I think that when you look at a situation like that...
Okay. Oh my god. Fuck. Okay. I am so sick of this. Fuck. The boys have fucked up. The boys, Injustice, Brightburn, all these fucking evil Superman motherfuckers have greatly diminished and tarnished the fucking legacy of this character so fucking much. It pisses me off to no goddamn end. Because everyone has this twisted fucking sense of Superman. I think he should kill. Motherfucker, if heroes killed, that doesn't make them fucking heroes.
And by the way,
And I
Get-
hold on. I want to point this
Sorry.
out.
go ahead.
What I mean by heroes, I mean heroes in the traditional sense of the Golden Age DC Comics. Granted, yes, some were inspired by pulp heroes, like Batman with the Shadow, who in his early days did use a gun, did kill, but that was quickly retconned because of audiences at the time not liking that from the changing viewpoints of the time. So, whatever the fuck your names are, I do not care to learn them. All you prove constantly within 4 minutes and 15 seconds of your video that is near 20 minutes long, that you have no clear idea of the character of Superman. You have no general affection for this said character because you are blatantly mocking him or the writer's choices on actually
Defending his actual character instead of defaulting
I
to
was
the
gonna say-
like
I was gonna-
deconstructed thing.
I was going to say no, fucking portray his character in the actual light of the last whenever this comic came out, which I believe was in the early 2000s. So from that time, but early mid 2000s, I believe.
Yeah, so he had already been this character for 50 or 60 out of the like 70 or 80 or 70 or 80 years that he's existed, pretty much.
My point is that it's this genuine lack of contextual knowledge or lack of learning or exploring the character, like actually going in depth and discovering things about this character, that makes your arguments practically null and void. That you're being so nonchalant because you think you are ultimately in the fucking right. The smugness, the arrogance that you believe in your interpretation of what Superman would have done shows your total lack of narrative narrative intellect of this character.
Yeah.
And there's nothing genuine about it on how you're trying. Like, okay, if you want to have this debate about what he would have done, that's fine. But the fact that you poise it not as a debate of philosophy, but more so a farcical statement of this character would do this is just absolutely asinine and makes me I'm gonna be fully honest. I did not respect these motherfuckers' opinions at all ever since we started watching their videos. But my genuine opinion of them now and respect I had for any type of professional opinion they could have on this subject has been lowered than the rock bottom that it already was at. And that is saying fucking something.
You see why I had to send this to you back in the day, right? You see why I got like 5 minutes into this video and I was like, oh my god, I'm sending this to Brainstormer because I need him to rip it a new asshole for the sake of his own sanity, honestly.
Okay, Giantro, what I meant by it is the general, like, in terms of pop culture in the relative decade or so,
for the last 20 years or so, it's not just that we've gotten deconstruction of Superman after deconstruction of Superman. It's that it's given rise to this milieu that says that idealistic altruism is in and of itself stupid and wrong. That it's a sign of Superman being idealistic. It's a sign of It's essential. A lot of people seem to think that only a child would be as principally altruistic as Superman is, and therefore the only way to properly write him is to write him abandoning his altruism for some reason.
Right. Yeah, that's what I meant. If I didn't clarify, that's my fault on that. I was just kind of going on kind of a rant there because that genuinely pissed me off.
I knew it would, because that is the exact moment where I stopped watching this originally and sent it off to you, because it was like I wanted to rip this thing a new asshole as soon as it got there, and then I thought to myself, I can't fucking imagine what someone actually more invested in Superman as a character would say to that. And now we know.
Right. I have not been that angry in a while on the stream.
I knew it would happen. This is why I sent it to you, because I wanted to give you the chance to rip this a new asshole, because it needed it.
But yeah,
But
no,
anyway.
but yeah, Dren Charlie, you're right. I suppose I did phrase it in a weird way, so that's my fault on that. And hello, Jonah. Did not know you left.
He was pissy. Given how little experience Brainstormer has being that angry, I'm like this is the benefit of being me and being the asshole. Because I have lots and lots and lots and lots of experience being the asshole, I can rant angrily at length and still mostly get most of the nuances down. Granted, I also have a philosophy background, which probably contributes to some of my ability to do that. Whereas Brainstormer very much does not. He comes more from a literary and artistic perspective than a philosophical one. Granted, I think it was last year, I did get him a book called The Philosophy of Superman, and I'm interested to see how, if in any way, when he eventually gets around to reading that it will inform his perspective on the character more or whatnot. Plus, Brainstormer being Brainstormer, anything he reads is going to wind up inspiring whole new vectors of stories, because he can't not do it. He has storytelling Tourette syndrome. He can't go 5 minutes without burping out a story concept.
No comment.
Because you know it's correct.
No comment. Anything you want to add, or?
Yeah, no, I think I already said my bit when I was kind of explaining to DT where you were coming from. It's not just that people don't like Superman. Not liking Superman is perfectly fine. It's the idea that people think that the concept of the character in general, the fact that they hold Superman's idealistic altruism, the things that define him as a character, against him, and think that the only way for Superman to be written, quote unquote, with or for grown-ups TM is for him to abandon that idealism, as though no adult has ever sincerely or well thought outedly believed in idealism or altruism, or any combination of the two, which goes back to, I think, our Brainstormer and my mutual hatred for nihilism. This idea that you not only is it stupid to hold anything to a higher standard, but you're actually a less intelligent person if you do hold any kind of idealism. And mind you, again, my morality when it comes to stuff like this is much more in line with a Lex Luthor or a Bruce Wayne. But again, much like I think Bruce in universe holds a lot of respect for Clark because of his idealism, I want to be wrong. I do think, much like Lex and much like Bruce, that it is somewhat farcical to expect someone with that much power to be that idealistic. But the difference between me and Bruce and Lex, or frankly, most of the people who have been charged with writing Superman for the last 20 years, is we want to be wrong. I don't believe that someone that powerful can be that pure, but if such a person existed, if there was a Clark Kent out there, I would be grateful for such a person to exist. That's why, again, I have a lot of respect for Brainstormer, who is, in my opinion, the closest person morally I've ever come into contact with, to a Clark Kent or a Steve Rogers Captain America. I'm glad that we philosophically disagree on this point, because if everyone thought like me, we would spiral into nihilism pretty quickly. There have to be people who hold themselves to a higher standard.
Titano. That was the gorilla I was thinking of, like the massive giant gorilla that Superman faces. It's one throat.
Ah, okay. So that brings me back to the question, is he just a giant animal for giant animal's sake, or does he have some level of intelligence?
I'm looking it up.
Because that does... In DC, it could be one or the other, and either could be a thing, so I don't know.
Okay, Toto the chimp. Apparently he was a slapstick comic pet. Toto was sent to space. Rocket. While in a space ally, Toto was bombarded with radiation after a collision with between two meteors, one made of uranium and the other containing kryptonite.
Okay.
Moments on trying to Earth appeared unaffected by his experience. But moments after he left his castle, he began to grow to a tremendous size. Recognizing a friendly face in Lois, he picked her up, thinking Lois was in danger.
So it's a benevolent character.
Toto has blasted Superman with kryptonite vision. Though not malicious, Titano, as Lois renamed him, wrong, clumsy enough to cause a great deal of damage and potentially cause harm.
Okay, so not only is it an animal, it's an animal who is mostly benevolent, which leads us back to the absolutely fucking no, Superman would not have killed him, especially if they have some history.
Oh, that's interesting. Okay, so Superman encountered Titano again when a machine from an alien world transported him back to the present. Oh no, okay. Man of Steel hurled Titano into the prehistoric past where he would be among other giant creatures.
So we literally have confirmation that not only would he not do that, but he has literally done the opposite of what you described him doing, like
and then,
4 or 5 different freaking times.
I'm not done yet. And then he was given a serum by the Legion of Superheroes. Jimmy Olsen gave Titano a serum. Jimmy Olsen was raised a superhero called Elastic Lad. Okay, didn't know that.
Neat. Good for Jimmy.
Yeah, given to him by the Legion of Superheroes to duplicate the powers of Colossal Boy, and as a giant, he overcame Titano. Laura and Astar of the Astar system then took Titano to her own world of giants, where the huge ape found him a mate.
Okay, so again, we have exact confirmation of the opposite of the thing you said he would do. He did literally the opposite of the thing you said he would do in every other instance. Also, actually, this brings up an interesting point of you failed at reading comprehension bullshit. But, especially given what Brainstormer just read of Superman's history with this character, I imagine that probably played into why Superman was angry as well. Because if Superman and Titano are mostly friendly with one another, and the elite kill them without even trying to
No,
reason with him,
it was a different one. A different ape, I think. I'm not sure.
okay. But regardless of whether this was Titano, in which case Superman would have been extra pissed because you killed something between a friend and a pet of his, and two, even if this isn't Titano and it's a different giant ape, Superman has friends who are giant apes, and probably would have tried the same thing he tried with the Titano if this character, if the elite hadn't butchered him, which yeah, I imagine that probably also didn't put Superman in the most philosophically open-minded of moods. Because when you kill a friend of someone, or someone who looks very much like a friend of someone, then not happy things are happening to you. Like me, if I ever saw someone mistreating a cat, you'd have to physically restrain me to prevent me from killing a motherfucker. Because you don't mistreat cats around me, or you die. That's just them's the rules.
So, anyway, shall we?
Banana.
That and say, oh, but I don't know, Superman could have just knocked out the gorilla or something. You're basically saying the equivalent of, why don't police just try and disarm the murderer first before shooting them?
Yeah.
What the
Why don't you
fuck?
just
Why
try
don't you
and
get a social
disarm?
worker to come in and
Yeah,
talk
yeah. Why
to
don't you
them?
get a social worker? I find it gave off those vibes to me. And once again, I think I can add some context to this, given that I've read his.
Hold on.
Stop.
Okay. Those are two very different scenarios with two very different types of people.
Yeah, the
In two very
policeman.
different-
Yeah, sorry.
Sorry.
Go ahead.
I was going to say, in two very different occupations. The fact that you can't differentiate the two is.
Or the
again,
fact that you're deliberately conflating the two for ideological reasons.
it's legitimately showing how asinine and short-sighted you really are.
Also, most police officers will at least try to disarm someone before shooting them to death. Yes. Like that is a thing that people do. They say things like put your gun down so we don't have to shoot you, etc.
Let's also remember this. These guys are British.
Okay, well then they have even less excuse because British constables are fucking pansies compared to American policemen.
If you swap superheroes with police, these guys are praising if they have cops executing suspected criminals in the street. Yeah.
Yeah, it's effectively the difference between a police officer who does go through the motions of telling someone to put the gun down so we don't have to shoot you, or I guess what these people would prefer, which is just you kill every criminal on sight and don't even give them a chance to put the gun down. If we follow this logic to its logical conclusion of the elite are based in Superman as a altruistic pansy, then we're supposed to conflate superheroes with policemen, then that effectively does mean that literally everyone committing a crime is more or less the type of person you should shoot on sight without any attempt to de-escalate. And yeah, that's the other thing. There's a whole ass incident de-escalation, and you appear to be advocating for the fact that you would prefer if we just threw any attempt at incident de-escalation out and become the freaking Stapo. We just shoot them on sight, and we will let God sort them out later. Derp, I guess. And yet, if the woke the social justice-ified police officers tried that approach with, the various thought criminals that the UK seems enamored with, like if one of y'all was subpoenaed by the Met Police to appear in court and you resisted and they immediately shot you, somehow I think you would automatically remember that de-escalation tactics are a thing and the non-aggression principle is also a thing. Like you don't escalate, you at the very least don't escalate the violence beyond what the criminal themselves escalates. Fucking hell.
Banana?
Yep, banana.
It's Deadpool run.
Yeah.
Joe Kelly dealt with this whole idea much better and in a much more nuanced way in that run, because Deadpool is not a character who has any qualms about killing people.
No.
I think that's very, very clear. And he starts off
Stop.
that run with Deadpool in that.
Okay, that's
Gee,
not an
it's
accurate
almost like the-
comparison.
Okay, but no, fine. I'm allowing this, but this is the thing. It's almost like Deadpool and Superman are different characters with different philosophical worldviews or something, you cunts. Harry's the one doing most of the talking, so I'm blaming Harry for this. Harry, my dude. The fact that a good writer writes two different characters in different ways appears to have utterly sailed clean over your head like a fucking NBA basketball, my dude. Like the reason why you like the way he wrote Deadpool and don't like the way he wrote Superman is it appears to be the case that in both cases, Joe Kelly is doing what a good writer should do, which is, as and when they are writing a pre-established character that they didn't create, you write them in character. And even if it is a character that you created, still you should strive to write them in character where possible. Like, goddamn. All you've said there, and I'm being charitable and assuming you're not being completely inconsistent cunts, all you've said there is you like the way Joe Kelly wrote Deadpool because he wrote him as willing to kill, like Deadpool is in character, and you don't like the way he wrote Superman because he wrote Superman as a quote-unquote pansy-ass pacifist, even though, by your definition, that is exactly who Superman is. You appear to be struggling with the notion that Deadpool and Superman are two distinctly different characters, and that a good writer, rather than using them as ideological mouthpieces, writes characters that he didn't make, or that he did make, but at least wants to be consistent about, in the in-universe logic of their characters. God damn it. Fuck.
Giant Turtle, they love to throw out that Dune quote about someone being spared because it is their principles, but not sparing them because it's their principles.
Yeah, no, that is essentially literally what they're doing. This appears to indicate to me, and again, I might be reaching a little bit here, but it appears to indicate to me that the only reason they don't like the authoritarian policies of the social justice woke left is because they are not the ones in charge of it. If they had an opportunity to create some sort of tradcon strawman patriarchy, if they had the opportunity to essentially create Big Brother from 1984, they would do it as long as Big Brother enforced quote unquote the right policies. Derp. Also, kudos to Joe Kelly for remembering that characters are different characters and writing them accordingly, which apparently seems to have fucking sailed over the Lotus Eaters' heads here. There are very few writers working today who still remember that you're supposed to write the characters based on their perspective, not yours, where possible.
General, I told you guys, it's like the Star Wars thing Sargon did. They are twisting things to fit their conclusion, because if we reframe half of things here, I don't know if he's still right or not, so we'll give him a minute on that.
I'm sorry, I don't think I got this far in the video the first time I watched it, because I didn't remember that at all. That what, you mean Deadpool and Superman are written as two different characters with two different moral perspectives? Yes, Harry, they are. Because they are. Fucking hell.
Alright. I am also. No, I meant they are using reframing and perception to bend over backwards and find their conclusion. Okay.
Yeah. Again, they appear to have completely ignored that Superman being a purer than driven snow white light of a character is precisely who that character has been for not only the majority of the publication history, but according to literally everyone who gives a damn about the character, that is how the character should be written. That's why people hated Man of Steel so much, because Zack Snyder tried to turn Superman from an idealist into a Randian objectivist, and it completely asked to fuck the character. Because that's not who the character is.
Right. Anyway, I'm almost
But,
certainly fully. I don't press this. I don't think we're gonna get through it tonight. And we are just gonna put this on the back burner for now. We'll finish it at some other point when we have time. But
Yeah,
we are
we'll
just gonna reach. We'll try to reach the halfway point, like 8 minutes.
where are we at now?
450.
Okay, so yeah, we'll try to call it. So if we don't get to the halfway point by like midnight, then we'll call it there.
Yeah.
But we'll hopefully get to the halfway point by midnight.
I'm usually in bed by now, so.
Banana.
Yep.
That mode. But throughout the run, Deadpool, I forget the catalyst of this, but he decides that he wants to do better. He wants to be a better person. I think something personal affects him, and he decides that he doesn't want to kill anymore. Except he suddenly finds himself put into positions where it's very difficult to find a reason not to kill the villain. And the biggest one that ends up happening, and it is a little bit of a manufactured situation, but it does push his newfound principles all the way to the limit.
Again, this is a sign of Joe Kelly being a good writer and being willing to write the characters as their individual selves rather than using them as propagandistic mouthpieces. Because I agree with you guys in principle that writing characters as personal mouthpieces is rather shitty. But you are actually looking at Joe Kelly playing Superman and Deadpool respectively as they ought be played, i.e. writing them in character, and you're baffled not by Joe Kelly's sudden lack of writing skill or whatever the fuck, but by the fact that he, as a good writer, acknowledges there's a philosophical difference between Deadpool and Superman. Do you understand why it's more reasonable for Deadpool to temporarily decide to try and do better and then default back to his original position than it is for Superman to break his 60-year plus altruism and idealism streak and become essentially essentially a fascist dictator, because that's who Superman would become if he wasn't moored to his idealism and his altruism. He would become Thrasymachus from Plato's Republic. He would become this guy who says, "Well, I'm stronger than everyone, so I decide what's moral, and no one can argue with me." That's where you go from Superman as he should be written to an Injustice Superman or a Homelander or a Brightburn or whatever else the fuck. It's crucial to Superman's character that he doesn't do that. And it's frankly crucial to DC's world building, because if Superman did decide to become the world's fascist dictator, like Lex Luthor's always been wanting to goat him into, that basically permanently fucks over DC's continuity. Assuming that DC would even bother being consistent with their continuity at this point, but that's another conversation entirely.
I don't think fascist. I think either generic strongman dictator, god, in parentheses, king, or philosopher king. Says Dragon Turtle.
Okay, I was using fascist in the colloquial sense, more so than in the every. I was using fascism in the colloquial sense, not in the Giovanni Gentile sense. So fair enough, DT. But we all know what I was getting at. If Superman wasn't moored to his morality and his philosophy and his idealistic upbringing and stuff, he would essentially be unilaterally controlling basically the entire world if he wanted to. Because he would be approaching things from the Thrasymachus tradition, or the Thrasymachus approach from Plato's Republic, the "I have the power, therefore I can do whatever the fuck I want" position, or the like pseudo Nietzschean position of "I have the power, therefore I decide what's moral" at the very most charitable. And in either case, it would permanently ruin Superman's character, and it would basically spell the end of DC's world building full stop until something occurred to retcon Superman back into the character he's been for 60 years. Because someone that powerful needs to restrain themselves and needs to take responsibility for what they do with their power. Otherwise, the entire universe is basically an egg, and Superman will just step on it. Which would make Lex Luthor happy, and apparently a bunch of other fucking edgelords happy who don't think that Superman should be an idealist, but it would utterly ruin his character. Like it does in the Injustice comics, for example. Banana.
Dragon Turtle, don't just throw around fascist as any authoritarianism that isn't communism or monarchism.
Fair enough, DT. I didn't think I had to specify that I was using a colloquial definition, but yes, I was in that instance using the colloquial definition. Honestly, the only reason why a character like Homelander or a character like a corrupted Superman wouldn't be considered a fascist is because for a character like Homelander or a character like Superman, there is no use for the state, so there is no reason to bureaucratize everything like Giovanni Gentile suggested. I think that's the main difference between a Homelander or an Injustice Superman and fascism proper, is just that if Superman became philosophically fascist, there would be absolutely no need for the state, because he would just do whatsoever he wanted to, and because he has the power to. Derp. Anyway, moving on. Banana.
Which is that some people, an organization of Watchers, because in the Marvel Universe they've got the Watchers, they get in touch with him and they say, listen, you need to kill this galaxy-threatening monster, this being that literally, wherever it goes, it mind controls, it takes away all autonomy from everyone that it gets near.
Kind of like you're suggesting the writer should do to Superman because you don't like that he's an idealist or an altruist. It's funny. Autonomy and agency for me, none for thee. None for anyone who philosophically disagrees with me on any meaningful level. Like, I know I'm reaching a little bit there, but my fucking god, that's hypocrisy at its finest. That people can have all the freedom they want as long as no one is ever an altruist or an idealist or a pacifist. Derp.
If I recall, there have been times he's overpowered. Been times he's overpowered Zeus, Darkseid, and Highfather, and the Antimatter. So yeah, might be that nobody could stop him. Don't forget, a lot of people are dumb. Oh yeah, don't forget, a lot of people are dumb. So you need to be able to prove your speech, let alone people looking to misinterpret you.
I am aware, but I am the guy who is philosophically pedantic and shit. So regardless of whether they are intelligent enough to understand the point I'm making, they need to be called out for being morons. Because in my worldview, the appropriate answer to morons is to explain to everyone how and why they're morons. The correct answer to stupidity is argument, not censorship.
Alright, wait, no magic weakness, so a sorcerer just needs to avoid being speed blitzed, at least as long as he doesn't start learning magic or making magical packs. Packs. I don't know.
Well, okay, but regardless of whether he could be stopped, a Superman who tries to do the takeover thing, tries to be the God King, would be irreparably damaged if it were in the canon timeline. Obviously, you know, Injustice Superman is a different universe, blah blah. But I think even the proliferation of so many deconstructions of Superman that not only subvert his idealism and his altruism, but actually like shun and shame his former idealism and altruism is in and of itself a problem with how this character's been approached recently. People don't just find Superman to be wrong, they find him to be beneath contempt because he is wrong for some reason.
Alright, moving on.
Banana.
And it's coming to Earth right now. And what it does in taking away their autonomy is basically puts them in a state of perpetual bliss. So you get the argument of, okay, how moral is it to prevent people from attaining eternal bliss, but at the same time, in doing so, it takes away their autonomy.
It's like the Black Mercy.
No, what the fuck?
They're talking about Deadpool.
No, I know, but they're bringing up the Black Mercy as I paused it, which, motherfucker, that's not good.
No,
Like,
they're making the argument that because Deadpool handled this in a more nuanced fashion, that was better, derp. But again, I see that point and I raise you because Deadpool and Superman are two different characters, you cunt. Just like it would be wrong to rewrite Superman and make him a Randian objectivist or a nihilistic pragmatist, blah blah. It would be just as wrong to force every anti-hero character to be a Superman-like character. This is the thing. This is the pluralist argument I was making earlier. Not only are there inevitably always going to be different perspectives, but on some level there probably should be, because any single perspective, if taken to its logical conclusion in a reductio ad absurdum sense, will ruin itself. Therefore, the multiplicity of viewpoints is not only inevitable, but also necessary and good. God damn it. Deadpool should be Deadpool, but that doesn't stop or invalidate Superman from being Superman or vice versa.
Hold on. Dragon Turtle. Why I love parody but hate satire. Satire is attacking the thing, so it always comes across as mean-spirited and spiteful. Not the same, but related to why I hate people who just angrily yell at the camera as if they are yelling at their audience, let alone when they are yelling at their audience because you aren't doing enough.
Yeah, the aforementioned problem that YouTube has with narcissistic twits. And yes, the aforementioned brainstormer joke of yes, I am probably also one, but whatever.
At least you're self-aware. Others aren't.
This is the difference. The very crucial and applicable difference. I know I'm the bad guy. I don't arbitrarily pretend to be the good guy when it suits me. I am of winter. I am unseelie, etc. I am not a good person and I never claim to be.
Alright. I got 2 more minutes, so.
Yeah. Banana.
From what do you get for the man who has everything?
And the only way that Deadpool has to solve this problem is to kill the creature before it gets to Earth and basically takes over everybody's mind. And it's a massive point in the comic book. He ends up weeping over it. He ends up having to take the plunge and ends up killing it.
Okay.
Do you think that it is wrong to agonize about having to cross a line, or that you shouldn't feel bad for ending someone's life?
So these guys are just so fucking confusing.
They appear to be advocating you should just be able to casually and callously turn your empathy off and kill people indiscriminately.
Okay,
and
I'm gonna say this.
like never lose a wink of sleep over it or anything.
Okay, I'm gonna say this, and I'm gonna preference it by saying a majority of all humanity, a majority, right,
Mm-hmm.
are not wired that way. We are thinking, feeling human beings. Yes, we are stupid. Yes, we are violent, but most of us, there is a small percentage that do not give a shit and are incapable of feeling a damn thing.
But they are sociopaths and shouldn't be aspired to. God damn it!
Yeah, can't believe we have to say that, but people do that anyway. To take, and I said this like at the beginning. To take a life is also to kill a part of yourself, because that the person you killed, no matter what context, I mean, there are certain contexts where it's somewhat acceptable, obviously, like survival, if that person's trying to kill you, or that person did like extremely bad things and was going to keep doing bad things.
Self defense, preemption of genocide, etc., and so on. Like
either way, but that is still a living, thinking, breathing human being, someone that, you know, if roles were reversed, it's just like, it's a very complex matter because it's another living soul. And yes, I'm aware someone can make the arguments for like animals and stuff, but that's a whole different thing entirely, and it's not really related to this point.
Yeah, separate subject matter.
Right. You are looking, depending on how it works, right? You are taking the life of someone who has lived a life. It could be similar to yours, could be vastly different. Either way, it's someone who has lived a life like you have lived a life. and thus that initial part of empathy that is inside us is there, and it makes us really not like to do that. And some of us have, sympathy or are able to empathize with others, like, feel pain of others and stuff, like, that kind of stuff. So it's a traumatic thing to kill someone. I feel like a lot of people don't get that. Like
Now,
these people.
now, mind you, I'm going to come at this from a slightly different perspective because, as I previously said, I am not a moral person and I never claim to be. If I ever do claim to be, please feel free to tell me to shut the fuck up. But here is the difference even between someone like me, who is again a servant of Queen Mav, may she be praised, etc., who is, a predator at the end of the day. Just because I would knowingly and willfully do immoral things in certain circumstances doesn't change the category that the behavior or the action belongs in. It's the difference between doing immoral things because of circumstance or because it's your nature and then trying to convince yourself that those are not immoral things after all. It's I'm going to use a rather dark example, but it's the difference between someone who is psychologically fucked in the head and therefore is attracted to children, who self-medicates using lolly or some other non-physical, non-harmful band-aid for that scenario, and the Sneakos and Amos Yees who try to convince people that it's actually a moral correct thing to fiddle with children. Doing immoral things under certain circumstances is not necessarily a problem, but it should hurt you afterwards once you've done that, and once you've crossed that line. You don't then get to lie to yourself and say, well, I didn't do anything wrong actually. And B, you don't get to commit category error. Immoral things don't automatically become moral things because you can philosophically justify it to yourself. You can do immoral things if you acknowledge that those things are immoral sometimes, but you don't get to do immoral things and then lie to yourself about it. You don't get to say, I shouldn't feel any harm or I shouldn't feel any pain because I was really justified after all. Derp. No. Certain things should hurt, and you need to be intellectually honest enough to feel that pain and correctly categorize certain things rather than trying to justify it in your own head afterwards. Moving on.
Alright, okay, Turn Turtle. Before we move on, okay. I disagree with that brainstormer. I think that is just being weak, but one should not come to such a decision lightly, and if possible, such judgments should be made by things like courts rather than individuals, especially those highly biased in the situation. Sympathy is a top gap measure. It makes you cry about insulting a stuffed animal in another house, protects the attacker as much as the victim, and is biased to those more charismatic, attractive, etc. Okay. Sympathy just says things feeling bad is bad, especially the more you like them. I swear I could rant for an hour or two over the whole lolly thing. Don't even get me started on that unless you have the time. Disagree with you as well, Dalton. But that is an old argument. I question if we will ever come to an agreement on.
Yeah, no, I knew exactly what you were going to do with regards to the CT because we have had this argument before. My thing is a fundamental. Let me say my piece, and then we'll move on. My thing is, I think it's a fundamental intellectual weakness to commit that kind of category error. Immoral things don't suddenly become moral because derp reasons. If you're going to do immoral things, on some level that's fine, and maybe even sometimes not avoidable. But just because something is not avoidable doesn't change the box it's in. For a great example of this is I actually respect Kyle Rittenhouse for crying on the witness stand at his trial. Because that, to me, says he's not a sociopath. He actually lives with the consequences of what he had to do. I would actually think less of him if he sat there stone-faced and stoic through the whole thing, especially being a freaking 17-year-old. It's good that he feels the consequences of his actions because those actions were regrettable regardless, even if they were necessary.
I won't try this out and hijack the stream, but let it be known on how they contest this category error. We can talk about it later if you want. All right.
We've talked about this 10 times off the top of my head. I can think that we've talked about this, but yeah, this is, I guess this is sort of the spectrum. Brainstormer is the principled idealist at the end of the day. I am fine with doing immoral things as long as you don't lie to yourself about them and say that they're moral things. Dragon Turtle would be fully okay with recontextualizing things in your head if you had to.
Anyway. I don't know. I also want to point out 6 minutes in, they haven't really gotten to the actual, like, they started with the issue, but they've veered off.
Yeah.
Again.
But anyway,
Banana.
Something that deeply affects him and has repercussions for the rest of Joe Kelly's run in a very nuanced and thoughtful way. And that's so much better handled, that whole dilemma, than it.
Okay, I'm sorry. I need to apologize. Yeah, he has a whole fucking run for that. He only got one issue to do for the guy. I feel like that you're being selective in that criticism there.
And again, the fundamental issue at play here is the reason these two stories are different is because regardless of whether they gave Joe Kelly more issues or not, the stories should be different because regardless of the fact that they're written by the same writer, they're being written about two entirely different fucking characters with two entirely different philosophical frameworks. Like for example, I don't care that Zack Snyder is a Randian objectivist, and hell, if he makes a question movie, I would actually consider his Randian objectivism to be a benefit to a movie based on the Question, because the Question is also a Randian objectivist character. But writing Superman as a Randian objectivist shows a desire to use the character as a mouthpiece rather than differentiate yourself from the character and write the character as the character should be written regardless.
Right. So it bugs me that they're talking about how it's handled in nuance with Deadpool. They specifically state throughout the rest of the run. Again, whatever happened to Truth, Justice, the American Way was a single issue.
Shouldn't have been, but we don't live in the world of shoulds and could haves. We live in the world of is.
Yeah.
Unfortunately.
I just
somewhere
feel
out there in the multiverse, this is a better storyline for having more issues, but
yeah,
we don't live in that world.
All right, Banana
is in this one single issue that people seem to like because
Okay.
it's Superman saying things that sound kind of Superman, even though at the end, to prove his point, he basically pretends to murder everybody anyway.
Yeah. We'll go through briefly chronologically. So then what happens is Jack Ryder then meets up with Clark Kent and says Superman is yes.
Okay, mother. That was the fucking point, you dumb motherfuckers. He's showing people what would happen if he listens to the popular opinion of the fucking time, the bandwagon.
If he got on the anti-hero bandwagon, it would be a terrible world. And the world is better off for having both perspectives in it, you ignorant motherfuckers. Like, even though DT and I fundamentally disagree on the thing we were just talking about, I am glad that I have a friend who has a completely different philosophical worldview than mine, because that means that I can check myself before I wreck myself as and when I need to. And I hope that he gets some utility out of me being his friend as well, because otherwise then I will feel remarkably shitty, but that's neither here nor there.
You mean more so than usual?
Yes, because you know me, one of the principles that I have that isn't really exactly a moral one, but it is definitely a principle, is the idea of reciprocity and transactionalism.
No, I was just talking about you general depression.
But
I feel
yes,
like that
the answer is yes. If I were a unilateral drain on someone's life, especially someone that I cared about, yes, that would make me feel shittier. And would be one of the things that the anxious depression voice in my head would use to make me think about downing a bottle of sleeping pills.
Okay, I just made this a lot sadder than I intended. I was trying to be funny. It clearly didn't work.
Dark humor is still humor, so I guess it kind of worked.
That's a lot dark. Yeah, I don't know where the humor is.
As Dr. Randall McCam once said, 99 parts dark to 1 part funny still counts as funny.
I'm not seeing the humor in that because I don't. Well, okay, you're dark, man. I realize who I'm talking to when I say that, but Christ, you can be dark.
Yes, and you are mostly not, which again, I respect you for.
Okay.
Yeah, moving on.
Today's news, and Clark starts to realize that the public are actually on the elite side. Manchester Black at one point says,
You mean just like in Kingdom Come, the public was on what's his name? Magog's side.
Yeah, the old ways are dead. Trust me, in less than a year, you'll love me for this. Again, guys, we're not going to take Superman's side in this. I love Superman, but I know some people were very upset about the fact.
Go fuck yourself.
Yeah. Go ahead.
You arrogant British twats. How? You know what? No. Okay. The characters of Magog and Manchester Black, the whole elite, they are reflections of like the edgy British motherfuckers that came into the comics at the time. Granted, some of them were pretty chill, pretty cool, did really good runs and stuff of characters and stuff. You know, Grant Morrison, Alan Moore, Neil Gaiman at the time, before he lost his fucking mind. I don't know. I'm sure there were a few others. I'm sure there were a few others, but I those are the ones obviously that made the big headlines.
Yeah, and there's a reason why the 80s and 90s were that way. It was an overcorrection to the forced censorious positivity of the Silver Age. Because of the meddling of people like Frederick Wortham and the Comics Code Authority, for 10, 15 years, you had to avoid serious or dark subject matters in comics. And so in the 80s and 90s, the British invasion and people like Frank Miller and stuff like that on top of it overcorrected by bringing the darkness back to comics. But I specify an overcorrection.
I would actually argue the point that you did mention Alan Moore, right? I'm sorry, I was reading comments while you were talking.
Yeah, the people in the British invasion, that includes Jamie Delano, that includes Alan Moore, that includes Neil Gaiman. Actually, I don't know if Jamie Delano is British or not, but point being, the British invasion and the comics zeitgeist of the 80s and 90s overcorrected for the Silver Age is forced silliness and forced positivity by bringing serious topics back to the fore. But
so
they also needed to be rebalanced thereafter
Okay,
because
okay.
it became the norm. Sorry.
All right. Now you're good. So what I was gonna say, and I'll read those comments in a second, Renfro. Give me a sec. What I was gonna say is that the characters. Oh, well, the point I was gonna argue with like Alan Moore, I wouldn't say he brought the dark, the darkness, as you said, back to
Mhm.
comics. More so the maturity, if that makes
Yeah.
sense. I mean, don't get me wrong. The Golden Age comics could be a little silly and stuff, but there was an underlying level of, and don't get me wrong, even like the comic writers back then, even though they put a lot of effort into them, they still saw them as like funny cartoon books, right?
Yeah,
That
the
was-
medium was very young at the time, so
Yeah.
it
Yeah,
had
it
a
was
lot of
very young.
growing to do.
Yeah.
And it wasn't really allowed to grow that way organically because the Comics Code Authority fucked it.
Okay. But my point, getting to my point, I mean, you can make the argument with like the pulps and stuff. Was like the maturity age. Obviously, that was like kind of precursor to comic books. But again, just
Mhm.
still trying to build on my point here.
Yeah.
Alan
Right.
Moore, in my opinion, kind of reintroduced the maturity of pulps and comics of the back then before the Comics Code Authority happened, and the overly positive, campy stuff of the Silver Age, which wasn't bad per se. It had a lot of interesting ideas that would have been expanded upon by
Yeah,
later.
no, because good writers were able to play by the Comics Code Authority's rules and still tell good stories. That being
Well-
said, they probably shouldn't have had to because censorious fucks will be censorious.
Right. However, so yeah, I would argue that that maturity, while could have been seen as that the younger crowds who read those at the time that became comic book artists and writers that were inspired by that
Overemphasized it.
overemphasized it, and instead of being mature, I mean, I'm not saying all of them, obviously. I've read some like Image comics from back then when I went to like
Yeah,
con.
but there was a lot of conflation between
Yeah.
maturity and darkness, or maturity
Yeah.
and nihilism.
Yeah, there was a very overconflation of that, and like these young hip writers and artists thought being gratuitous,
Everyone had to be an anti-hero.
yeah, thus, again, caused that great like overly edgy the Bronze Age, right, which was like in the 80s, 90s.
Early 2000s, etc. Yeah.
So I'm just so that's
And-
how that was a side tangent there, but I feel like it just needed to be very
Yeah,
like,
no, it's entirely worth noting. And ironically, comics like What's So Funny About True Justice in the American Way are the medium trying to find its balance again, trying to find its footing back in a more balanced perspective.
I mean, hell, even I've pointed this out many times on stream when we ever talked about this kind of thing, because we talk about this specific age a lot.
Mhm.
Like Age of Comics, right? Bronze Age.
Yeah, because it's what we either grew up with or what influenced the stuff we grew up with.
Yeah. Alan Moore himself, which I guess you can make the argument kind of was the forefather of the Bronze Age.
Blamed himself for overdoing it back when Alan Moore still had a shred of self-awareness.
Yeah, I mean, he made a bunch of comics that kind of were correcting it. His take on Supreme that I've looked into, and there are some videos out there. Just type in Alan
Strong,
Tom Strong. Honestly, I gotta look into getting those comics, like a compendium or something.
I almost got them for you for Christmas this year. I settled on a different book though.
Okay,
So I'm not spoilering you.
I got it. And also, yeah, like those. I I'm not sure what. Like he did some work for Image Comics. I know Neil Gaiman did like a couple stories for, or penned a couple stories for Spawn. Even created the character of Angela, and because of some issues, like legal or some disagreements with like Todd McFarlane, I believe, he took that character and gave it to Marvel
Mm-hmm.
and made Angela the half sister angel as guardian of Thor.
Mm.
I think there was some influence of that character in Hela in Thor Ragnarok. I'm gonna be honest.
Most likely. I think mostly they pulled from Gore the God Butcher, which is weird because they ended up using Gore anyway in Thor 4.
Yeah, actually,
yeah.
Nando V Movies actually did a pretty comprehensive breakdown of like the character inspirations for Hela in the MCU.
Obviously, another one was Mistress Death, which they honestly really, really should have used to put Hela in Mistress Death's place vis-a-vis the Infinity storyline, but they didn't.
Yeah, it would have actually been interesting. See her
Especially because let's be honest, no red-blooded male on this planet, and I'm saying this as a gay dude, no one would have blamed Thanos for burning the world over Kate Blanchett.
I also think it adds an interesting angle to his character. Like if you keep the whole, destroy half all life in the universe to spare the other from suffering.
Yeah, and you could have done both. You could have done. He started out thinking this way because of overpopulation. Then he met Hela and fell in love with her, and moreover, that would have made the line at the end of the first Avengers to challenge Thanos to court death, and the subsequent smile that was on Thanos' face. It would have made that make a lot more fucking sense. Granted, now we actually do have a death in the MCU, and we have Aubrey Plaza, who, again, speaking as a dude who is gay but not blind, had it been Aubrey Plaza instead of Kate Blanchett, we still probably wouldn't have blamed Thanos all that much.
Right. Anyway, before we move on, Giant Turtle. I'm already the most recent ones. They said I love Superman, but I'm not sure what version of Superman they seem to like. They say they love Ben 10, but their criticisms also apply there. And that smug attitude you guys mentioned, like they are looking down on comics or something. I'm starting to think these guys might be lying about we are one of you to get people to lower their guard. They're definitely well versed in SCW tactics, and morally, I don't think it would be beneath them.
Well, unfortunately, it's not something just limited to the SJWs. It's something that occurs in all forms of like literary theory nowadays because of the influence of the Frankfurt School and because of the influence of critical theory. Everyone likes to analyze art from a political or philosophical perspective rather than remembering that the in-universe logic of the characters and world building makes fucking sense and shit. I have beat the anti-Frankfurt School, anti-Neo-Hegelian drum many times over, and I will beat it once more. It will be able to take me to court and charge me with assault by the time I am done with the Neo-Hegelian framework or the Frankfurt School framework. But to be fair to the Lotus Eaters, it's not just the SJWs who do this. It's every literature hipster in the last 50 years because of the influence of the Frankfurt School and because of the influence of Neo-Hegelian critical theory.
Okay. Sorry, I think Ragnarok was sort of insulting to the characters by not taking most of them serious, but apparently the Planet Cult part wasn't killing the potential for it, and instead because the idea was already dead, so they tried to take something from that. At least if I recall. Oh no, I meant lie about being a fan and one of you to get people to lower their guard and let them in. They
Well,
had fighting the SJW, so they are very familiar with the Trojan horse tactic.
Yeah, this, however, is a thing the SJWs do, and it is a thing that the newly resurgent tradcons are fond of doing as well. But this is the fundamental difference, I think, between being a literature snob or a literature professor and being an actual fan. Because an actual fan takes things like characterization, world building, and in-universe logic into account. Literature hipsters only take themes, didacticism, politics, and philosophy and shit. They only take the utilitarian weaponization of literature into account. They never seem to give a damn about in-universe logic or consistent characterization or anything akin to that. I think this is less of a divide between SJWs and fans and more just a divide between literature professors or literary theorists and fans altogether.
Right.
Themes and things are a interesting tertiary subject matter, but if you can't put the themes away and look at things in terms of their in-universe logic, then you are a hack, and the literature brain rot has eaten away at you too much, I think. Moving on, though, Banana.
Yeah, give me a sec. Yep, banana.
Is news, and Clark starts to realize that the public are actually on the elite side. Manchester Black at one point says,
You mean just like in Kingdom Come, the public was on what's his name? Magog's side.
Yeah, the old ways are dead. Trust me, in less than a year, you'll love me for this. Again, guys, we're not going to take Superman's side in this. I love Superman, but I know some people were very upset.
You're wrong. And you're not wrong because you prefer Manchester Black to Superman. You're wrong in that you don't see the utility of both perspectives. It's not just that you disagree with Superman that's the issue here. It's that in your ideal world, Superman would start agreeing with Manchester Black rather than maintain his own unique, individuated philosophical perspective. And again, this appears to be where Harry and I disagree. Harry, I think, at best, sees other perspectives as an inconvenience that we have to pragmatically deal with. I see multiple perspectives as an actual virtue. I see pluralism not just as the only plausible way to look at society because of limitations of power, although it is. Pluralism really is, at the end of the day, the only realistic way of looking at things. But in addition to it being the only perspective that seems to work in practice, it is also, in principle, better than the alternative. Better than unilateral philosophies or unilateral perspectives. Because again, any given perspective, no matter how sacrosanct, if left to its own devices without any alternative or without any double checking, will result in purity spiraling and eventually in a reductio ad absurdum. You need multiple perspectives to balance each other out, if nothing else. Yep. Moving on.
Alright.
Upset about the fact that we thought Magog and Wonder Woman had the sensible take. The elite kind of had a sensible take in this. Then President Lex Luthor is working
I mean,
with.
the elite are kind of cringe. Let's be fair.
Yeah, but that's because they're caricatures. But the actual
are
morality of what they're
caricatures.
doing is pretty
And
valid.
I feel like it's almost written in a way to specifically try and make us be on Superman's side, or at least people.
Okay, you.
Almost as though it's a Superman book or something. Derp.
It's the fact that they say that the ideology makes sense.
While simultaneously mocking the idealistic altruism that has been Superman's MO since, at the very least, the mid 1940s.
Okay,
Basically, as soon as the Second World War ended, Superman's idealism and altruism became his default mode. And even during, actually, no, I'll go one step further, because even in the war years, when Superman fights Adolf Hitler in one issue, does he beat the shit out of Hitler for all the things he's done, and beat him within an inch of his life for like the American equivalent of Queen and Country? Fuck no.
No, sir. He flies over to Germany, grabs the Fuhrer, and flies that motherfucker to the UN.
So he can stand trial without being physically harmed in any way whatsoever, apart from the aforementioned being yoinked.
Oh, and for the record, when that was released, the American Nazi Party would stand outside the building that they were working, that Jerry Siegel and Joe Shuster were working in, making Superman. I think it was protesting, but also the possibility that they would jump the guys, the two Jewish boys. So they actually had police officers guarding the place too.
Honestly, if we're allowed to take Schadenfreude joy in the salt of anyone, we should be allowed to take joy in the salt of Nazis. Nazi salt is a glorious vintage of salt. Get wrecked, ya Untermenschen, but Tish.
Also, if you guys haven't seen it, haven't yet, and it's still up, you should see Sargon's Star Wars Jedi Propaganda, Defense of the Sith and Empire, by framing it as right wing and the Jedi and Republic as left wing.
I have seen it. I will add that to the queue of videos to be rebutted. Yes.
Fun fact, Rentro, I'm actually working on a Star Wars sequel rewrite. I have like the bare bones of it right now.
I assume he knows because you've talked about it on stream at length before.
Yeah, but that was like the first iteration I had of it. I'm actually going back. I've talked to you about it recently.
Yeah.
It's kind of a revision of it. All right. Also, it's weird to me. I mean, like, I know Manchester Black became more popular than the rest of them. The rest of the Elite, right? But I don't think the Elite have really appeared in anything else specifically in comics after their appearance.
I know the Hat hasn't shown up before because he's the Elite's nominal magic user, and I haven't seen him in anything else.
This is odd because you could develop the characters, right? Like like what they said, they're caricatures, right? Or yeah, caricatures.
Yeah, and honestly, I could see Manchester Black and Constantine hanging out. I could see them in an English pub drinking together. I think they would get along swimmingly.
I think they're both Cockney, right?
Yes. Johnny, I believe, is from Manchester. I'm not sure where Manchester Black is from. Although the fact that he's called Manchester Black would make it very ironic if he was from anywhere other than Manchester.
Yeah. I'll look into that, General. I mean, to be fair, General, I already have kind of an evil faction. That is effectively like the Spanish Inquisition. In Star Wars. That's just like my pitch for it. Yeah, I don't want to get too in depth with it because we'll be here all night.
Yeah, in any case, banana.
Yeah, we got like 30 seconds. So, but yeah, again, it's just weird to me that they haven't like, besides Manchester Black, he's appeared in other stuff, and I get it. He was like kind of the front man and stuff.
Yeah, it is weird. Did
Like,
any members of the Elite die? I don't think any members of the Elite died in this story.
No. They were all captured and had their powers suppressed.
Yeah.
And put in jail. But that's about it. All I've heard about them. I mean, to be fair, I haven't looked into them, but as far as I know, they haven't really been used.
I'm gonna have to look into whether Manchester Black and John Constantine ever crossed paths. Because if they haven't, that is one thing I'm definitely gonna do if I ever get the chance to write for DC. Because the fact that they haven't, if they haven't, is silly.
But it also strikes me as odd that they didn't become because it feels like they should be like each and every one of them, given the issue, right? They should be reoccurring in Superman's Rogues Gallery.
I don't know about that. I don't want to make them part of his rogues because that would be doing the opposite of what the Lotus Eaters are suggesting doing, which is full on demonizing them, which I don't think they should do either. My issue with the Elite isn't even that they are classed as heroes or anti-heroes. My issue with the Elite is
and Dalton's gone. Shit. I'll give him a few minutes to try. To answer your question, Dragon Turtle.
Okay, but back to what I was saying. My issue with the Elite isn't that they're villains masquerading as heroes or anything. My issue is they shouldn't be oppositional to Superman for exactly the same reason as Superman isn't actually all that oppositional to them. If you gave the Elite a spin-off series, or maybe had them break up the team and then give their individual character spin-off series and have them be like a Constantine or Punisher style anti-hero, I would read that series. Like if they gave Manchester Black his own series and had him be like a Constantine style anti-hero with telepathy instead of magic, like that would be fine. The issue is you shouldn't force the reader to choose between a Superman and a Manchester Black. Again, my answer to this issue is pluralism. you do need the purer than driven snow idealist like Superman, but you also occasionally need the anti-heroes who are willing to get their hands dirty for pragmatic reasons. And I think making them full-on villains of Superman would be doing the exact opposite of what I would advocate for, which, you shouldn't say that the elite are better than Superman because his idealism is stupid, but nor should you full-on demonize their pragmatism either, I think. The DC universe is a big enough universe that you can have both. I mean, hell, they have Constantine, and Constantine is basically Manchester Black if he had magic, or if he used magic instead of telepathy. To the point that, again, I really hope that someone somewhere has had the foresight to put those two characters together as, like, drinking buddies or something. Hell, you could even have them date for all I care, because Constantine is bi. I don't know where Manchester Black sits. I don't think it's ever established, but that would actually be a really interesting couple if Manchester Black and Constantine dated.
I've returned.
Huzzah! Technical difficulties have hopefully been interrupted,
Okay,
and now we should banana.
Can everyone hear me?
Yes, you are coming through loud and clear, and
Alright.
now we really should banana.
All right. All right. To answer the question, because I think I stopped, I wasn't able to talk when you posted the question earlier, Dragon Turtle. The powers, which I'm assuming you're asking for the elite. Manchester Black has like very powerful telepathy and telekinesis. Doesn't have telepathy.
Doesn't he? I thought he did.
Again, I'm going off my knowledge of the cartoon. He just seemed to have telekinesis.
Either that, or they never focused on his telepathy.
Yeah. Or he was just a powerful psychic overall. Let's just put
Right.
that.
Yeah. Powerful telepath.
Menagerie, the female of the group, is infected with a alien parasite that gives her a bunch of powers, like flight, super strength, all that, and she can use them, like pour them out of her body as well. So it's like a symbiosis thing, kind of.
Mm-hmm.
I think he had a different name in the comics. I think they changed it for the cartoon just because it was a bit much. Cold casts I think he's electrokinesis,
Mm-hmm.
or some type of energy. Not really Marvel symbiotes. More like there's one X-Men I know that has like alien parasites in his stomach that he can control. I just can't remember what it's called.
Mm-hmm.
Either way, I think they call him Cold Cast in the cartoon in Superman vs. the Elite. It's either like some type of energy power, like generation and control of it, or electricity. I'm not fully certain on that, so don't quote me on that. And the hat, like Don said earlier, he was resident magic, but that's because he's possessed by a demon.
And he has his main gimmick, as per his name, is a magical hat that allows him to like
pull anything out.
Pull various things out of it. Yeah.
Yeah. And the demon, I don't know if the demon's in control or it's the guy, but either way, they're just chilling and just trying to live life to the fullest.
Yeah, I don't recall if the Hat does anything particularly like edgy or immoral while he's a member of the elite. I think he's supposed to be kind of the voice of reason of the elite, sort of. But who the fuck knows? They didn't go into that much. They didn't go into that much detail, and as stated, despite the popularity of this particular comic, the characters of the elite don't really show up all that often. Even Manchester Black, even though he does show up more often than the rest of them. It seems.
Yeah, he was in Grant Morrison's Superman and the Authority comic. Like what was it? Like a year or so back. Like he was part of that version of the Authority.
Hmm.
Anyway,
Banana.
banana.
Our slant, because at one point I forget what his name is. Manchester Black, isn't it? Manchester Black says to Superman that you're a far right fascist, almost in a way that's supposed to make me be on side with Superman, going like, he's not a fascist. What are you on about? This is just some lefty nonsense. But everything else he says about
is the
reality,
neoliberal paradigm. Yeah. So it's interesting because
Man, fuck you guys. You know, Manchester Black is basically the character of you motherfuckers. Like your entire fucking counterculture bullshit.
Yeah, he's right down to being the British cunt. And honestly, I kind of feel I kind of feel we insulted Manchester Black a little bit there by comparing him to these yahoos.
Man, fuck Manchester Black. Guy's a fucking prick.
Well, yes, but is he their level of prick?
Yes.
Yeah, I'll give him a little bit of more credit than you. I think I don't think he's as bad as they are. I think if they had powers, they'd be worse than him.
Manchester Black is a self-entitled little prick that thinks just because he has powers, he can do whatever the fuck he wants in trying to make the world better, and not considering his actions have fucking consequences, and uses his shitty fucking backstory of a life as an excuse to be a fucking asshole.
Yeah.
Okay?
By the way, every member of the elite has some version of the like world's smallest violin type backstory, and that's supposed to. It's supposed to be a reference to a lot of the anti-heroes of that particular era in like the 80s and 90s.
So, and the worst part is the motherfucker philosophizes and proselytizes all the fucking time, but in actuality, he is just a fucking punk doing whatever the fuck he wants because he thinks he's untouchable.
Because he has the power, so fuck y'all is essentially the bit.
So no, I'm not giving him a break. I'm comparing him on the same fucking level as these jackasses. And I think that's pretty fucking apt.
Honestly, I think if these guys had powers, they'd be worse than him.
These motherfuckers ever have powers, I'm goddamn nuking England. I don't give a shit.
Yeah, right there with you.
Alright, Giant Turtle out of curiosity, totally off topic, feel free to skip. Would you guys take a Marvel symbiote if it had a personality / mentality you could gel with? If I recall, there are some individual differences of abilities and stuff, so whatever you guys want, long as it's canon or believable with what is canon, and not OP, but by symbiote standards. I
don't really want any of the powers demonstrated by the symbiotes, so that on that basis, probably not.
Yeah, I guess it ultimately depends. I obviously wouldn't want like a symbiote like Carnage or Venom, to be honest. I mean, Venom's cool, but you know they're like, how do I say this? Aggressive for my they're a bit too aggressive for my taste.
I guess to kind of take the powers out of it a little bit, the closest thing for me would be the Black and Denariuses from the Dresden Files, and you and I have already had that conversation. I totally would take a Denarian if it was the right kind of Denarian. Like I would Like I would say yes to Namshiel, although I would hand him over to Mab so she can torture him first for what
I'm
he
not
did to her.
I'm not gonna lie, I might do hybrid. The symbiote. Which is a combination of all the symbiote children of Venom. That formed together and became basically like a vigilante with this one person. I've never seen The Godfather, says Jonah. Honestly, neither have I, Jonah. I never cared for that movie.
It's Marlon Brando's performance as Vito notwithstanding, it's a very boring movie. There, I said it. Goodfellas is the superior mafia movie. Because you actually have fucking fun while watching it.
I couldn't get into that movie. I don't know. I've tried watching it on separate occasions, and I don't know.
Like I said, Marlon Brando's performance as Vito Corleone notwithstanding, it's a very boring series of movies.
I mean, on a technical level, from like the acting, the music, the cinematography, the writing, it's not bad. I don't know.
It's dull. It's boring.
Yeah, it's fair, Gentle. At least gave us "You Come to Me on the Night of My Daughter's Wedding." Yeah.
Yeah, no, and again, that's why I specify. Take Marlon Brando's Vito Corleone out of it, and there's almost no reason for me to watch that movie. I will watch the first one occasionally because it gave us Vito Corleone, but that's basically the only reason to That's basically my only reason to recommend The Godfather. And again, there is a superior mafia movie, Goodfellas, where you will actually have fun while watching it. And it's just as well written and cinematographed and so on. So
yeah. All right, we got 10 seconds, so.
banana.
Lex Luthor gets a briefing from Amanda Waller, who's his head of meta-human affairs, because Lex is president at this time, and she says that conversely, NATO, OPEC, the UN, and the rest are demanding a response to this fascistic act of brutality. So that...
The elite are kind of. I mean, they're not fascist in the sense that they don't advocate for a state. But that's because, much like a Homelander or an Injustice Superman, they don't have any need for a state or a bureaucracy because they have the power, they have the superhuman power to be worshipped as essentially gods.
Right. So I'm gonna be fully honest. The whole superheroes getting involved in more like international affairs and stuff was obviously done a lot better with Warren Ellis's The Authority, like his run on it.
Yeah, it's the non-edgy version of. Oh, well, I can't say it's non-edgy because Warren Ellis can be pretty edgy on occasion.
No, I don't know. I think if you compare it to when Mark Miller took it up after Warren Ellis left.
Yeah, no, it's the more nuanced version of what the elite, I think, tries to be.
Well, okay, because the thing is with Warren Ellis's Authority. Sorry, I don't mean to cut you off. Obviously, I'm just trying to give context here of that. With Warren Ellis's, to be fair, my knowledge of it is from research I've done with like videos I've watched covering it and stuff. So bear with me. That is my knowledge specifically. If I read it, I'm sure I'd have more to say, but it's a story about heroes being more proactive than reactive as superheroes have been in the past in terms of comics, right?
Mm-hmm.
They are actively trying to save the world in a way that's saving it from themselves. They're not dictating how people should act or anything. They're just making morally ambiguous choices for the betterment of all. and and to be fair, the stories are, if I recall correctly, again, anyone who's read it, feel free to correct me. They struggle with the moral complexity of some of the choices. They question themselves. The focus is on who these people are, how they make the choices, why they make the choices, and how those choices affect them going forward.
Yeah, and by the way, that's actually a good transition to this. Don't take anything we've said here as a disparagement of anti-heroes altogether. Like, the anti-heroes have their place,
Okay, so
but
no, that's fair. That's
but
fair. Honestly, we've written plenty. I've written plenty of anti-heroes. Dawn and I have written plenty of anti-heroes.
and I mean, let's be honest. There are literal characters in our Lionhearted setting that are basically our self-inserts. And surprise, freaking surprise, the guy who willingly and willfully bound himself to the Winter Queen ends up being a bit of an anti-hero when you put him in a superhero universe.
So I also want to point this out because this was actually a video I had watched some time ago regarding kind of the issue of stories today.
Mhm.
Gray morality has kind of been the thing that's perforated a lot of stories these days, right? There's no
and nihilism.
there are no. Let's just stick with. I know those two kind of go hand in hand, but let's just stick with gray morality, which the idea or concept of that is there are no good guys. There are bad guys and even worse guys. Right?
Yeah.
Everyone is making shitty choices and stuff, and everyone's out for it. Again, it's inherently tied to nihilism
Looking at you, the boys,
yeah.
both
Okay.
the comic
Well,
and the show. Although I think the show handles it a lot better than the comic did.
I would agree with that. But the video I had, the video I watched, and I could look that up and like put it in the Discord if I find it, if I find it again. It made the argument of going back to moral complexity, where there are good people making hard choices, and
Yeah, and that's the difference. And I guess the headline of what I'm advocating for is pluralism. Not everyone can or should be a purer than driven snow paragon like Superman, but nor should you shame people like Superman or Captain America for not being John Constantine, the Punisher, or the Red Hood. The world can and should benefit from people of all different philosophical perspectives and all different walks of life. And I think that is the good thing about the way we grew up, where you could have characters have philosophies or worldviews or point of view, and it was understood that you weren't endorsing a character's perspective just by allowing them to have a given perspective. Like, for example, I very much doubt that anyone on the writing staff for Justice League Unlimited was a Randian objectivist, but they still wrote the question as one, and they didn't turn his episode into a 90-minute screed about how awful Randian objectivism is or how great it was. They wrote him as a Randian objectivist because they were capable of being fucking neutral observers of philosophy instead of assuming, oh, we must automatically have a side on it. We must automatically take sides on every philosophical issue.
Right. And again, I'm sorry. It's just like this. When I watched the video that covered Mark Miller's run, and this was like early days Mark Miller, right? Before he did the Ultimate Universe, or no, it was like a little bit after he was doing the Ultimate Universe for Marvel.
Was
The first one.
Was it before or after Jupiter's Legacy? When did Jupiter's Legacy actually come out? I can't remember.
Hold on. I think it was after, but let me. Okay. That came out in 2013. So yeah, this was. Hold on. What was it? Uh, okay. Hold on. Grand Journal, these guys are surprised the state is upset about walking WMDs running around causing chaos for whatever reason outside of government control and supervision.
Let's not get into that because that runs into Marvel's Civil War territory, and there are very few good ways to play that.
Okay.
It-
So there were 29 issues in total for the run of Authority, like and it says Mark Miller took up half, like half the latter half of the series. So, okay.
And yes, we will have to get back to this video at some point, as well as we will definitely have to talk about their Kingdom Come video.
But I'm okay. So I'm just sorry. It's the scene that stand out to me the most when I. So again, this was early Mark Miller, who was like super super edgy.
Mm.
It didn't mellow out a bit as the years, like as he kind of has now. I mean, he's still kind of
Yeah,
edgy.
the British invasion were the edgy years, folks. Let it never be forgotten.
Well, this was the Authority was released in '99 to 2002.
So relatively late in that era, but yes,
Yeah.
still very much edgy.
So Mark Miller did pastiches of the Avengers that fought the Authority, right?
Mm-hmm.
He had a Captain America kind of guy, uh, who was kind of a piece of shit. Is how it is. Who said some slurs to Apollo, who is like the Superman equivalent of the Authority, and is also who was in a gay relationship with Midnighter, who is like the Batman equivalent, or I guess more so like Punisher or something.
Mm-hmm. Red Hood, probably somewhere in the middle there.
Yeah. It's just like, again, it's Mark Miller. It's just weird. Like the guy was super just out there when he started.
I
Um,
applaud the weird though. Honestly, there
I don't
isn't
mean
enough.
I don't mean weird as in the weird we like out there in terms of fiction and like
Yeah, but also Mark Millar was an edgy little shit back in the day.
he had Apollo get essayed by the Captain America pastiche.
Which just
Like I don't know.
like
It's weird.
that's taking both like paragons of inarguable goodness and tarnishing them at the same time.
It's weird, right? Like that's
It's putting a gun to Captain America's head and having him deflower Superman, for God's sake.
I mean, to be fair, that's not how those characters are. Like Apollo and whoever that dude was, I can't remember. But yeah, there was a genuine shift when Mark Millar took over the Authority. Um, there wasn't really as much nuance or contemplative storytelling, really.
It was just edgy for the sake of being edgy.
I think they
Who was the
committed.
Go ahead.
I think they committed genocide, like in the issue that Mark Millar took over.
I think they did. Who wrote Jared Stevens' Dr. Fate? Does anyone remember who wrote that fucking piece of shit.
Hold on.
For Dragon Turtle's benefit, I will explain who Jared Stevens is and why he is the bane of my ever-loving existence. Jared Stevens was a incarnation of Dr. Fate, who was a thief who was tasked by the previous owners of the helm to return it to them. And instead of that, he melted down the helm of Naboo and crafted it into throwing stars. And as you might imagine, the Helm of Fate was rather nonplussed by this, and so it literally blew up in his face, giving him an edgy boy onk-shaped scar, if I can speak today. And so, in order to staunch the bleeding, he ripped up the Cloak of Destiny, which is Dr. Fate's cape, and used it as a bandage.
Okay, you asked who the critters were?
The writer of Jared Stevens' Dr. Fate.
So Fate number 0, right? October
Yeah.
1990.
That's the other thing. He is the only incarnation of Dr. Fate who dropped the doctor from his name because he didn't want to be associated with an academic establishment. Derp.
See, I feel like so much edge. Yeah. I agree with that. I don't know. Maybe one of these podcasts. Yeah, maybe for our anniversary, we'll have a sit down and I'll rewrite the character for you, Dalton.
They keep ruining my favorite character. I don't know why they insist on doing it, but they keep fucking doing it. They keep.
Well, what I mean, Dalton, I'll rewrite Jared Stevens. I've done miracles like this before.
You have. I'm torn because I don't want you to waste your time salvaging that piece of shit. But at the same time,
the whole removing of the Doctor in Dr. Fate would make sense to me if he recognizes that he doesn't have a degree, so he can't call himself a doctor.
Right. I'm torn because at the same time I don't want you to waste your time fixing that shit, but at the same time I'm curious to see what you would do if you ended up fixing that shit. And because we're us, I'm sure we'll end up using whatever rebranded, revamped version of him you do come up with. So if nothing else, it's good for spurring our creativity onwards.
Yeah. Pirates Storm sounds like they don't know what to do with / they want from Dr. Fate.
It started as we don't know how to write a character who is a wise wizard and also highly powerful. And so it became increasingly we have to find ways to nerf this character. And then it slowly
Done? Oh boy. Can you hear him, Giant Turtle, or? Yeah, he's quiet. Don, if you're talking, we can't hear you. Oh, hold on. And he's gone. Almost died. Okay, a 90s Dr. Fate. How would I do this? Well, okay, if I'm keeping the Fate thing, yeah, I'll do like he just doesn't want to insult, keep it because he doesn't have a degree. Maybe I can, To be fair, magic users and inventors do have a common problem of how do we make them have the wide repertoire I don't know, of abilities who people expect from without using it, making it seem like they are pulling it out of our asses or overwhelm people. Even okay. Oh my god, Drag Turtle, you are a genius who just helped me think of something for Fate. Make him a fucking artificer, like the archetype of an artificer kind of deal. God, I wish Dalton was here for that. Fuck.
Anyway,
Back-
it started as we need to nerf this OP character because we can't find ways to write a character with both wise and powerful. And then it turned into people essentially forgot that Naboo actually had a character, and so they wrote him as increasingly detached and robotic, and as though he didn't care.
And he went silent again. So we are probably going to call it there, Dragon Troll. But thank you for the brief help on me thinking of an idea how to do that, how to do Jared Stevens or Fate better. I'm just gonna, I'll message him. Yeah. So we'll see you all next. Oh, hold on. Let me do this properly. With that, folks, I want to say goodbye, adios, aloha, avidazay, sayonara, peace, cheers, and shalom. Now fuck off.